because the trustees are out of control, because we, the shareholders, are not appointing the correct directors of our trust. And that's what it all comes down to.
It's pretty simple when you see it like that, isn't it? It's just so simple.
It is. It's absolutely simple. See, that's the thing. People make it very, very complicated, but really the truth is so simple. It's so ridiculously simple that most people simply can't see the forest for the trees. They think there must be revolutions to be waged, or all this endless paperwork to fill out, and all these things and steps they have to do, and all these little tricks that they do to try to collapse these trusts and all this sort of stuff. All we have to do is claim our right to administer our own trust that already exists with these people. Simply step into the role that you were born to be, and start making these trustees act the way the administrators tell them to act.
Now, what if the judge says, okay, well, no, this is our trust. This is the government owns it completely, and you can't do that. Is there any chance that they will do that?
They may try that, but you'd say, well, by whose authority? Show me by whose authority. Where is the contract that shows that I, as the sole shareholder, gave you permission to do that? Produce a contract where there was certainty of terms, where there was full disclosure, and there was valuable consideration. You need those three things to even have a valid contract. So show me the contract where I agreed that you could administer this. Because what I'm seeing here on my birth certificate is me as the sole shareholder. And I'm seeing that my parents were the grantor, of course. So when I became 14 years old, I became the sole shareholder and grantor. And so I believe I can appoint myself the administrator. You guys actually signed off on the deal. Your signature is on this document. Not my signature, not my parents' signature, but your signature, the signature of the Registrar of Births, Deaths and Marriages. That shows obligation. Any document that I've signed means that I'm obligated to perform a certain task. It means that I'm appointing myself trustee, or I've been appointed, or I've agreed to be trustee because I signed off on the deal. You know, you sold me a car. I told you that I'd pay you $100 a week. I signed the deal. Now I'm in trust to pay that. I'm required to pay that. I have an obligation to fulfill. You, the government, signed this document, which clearly shows me as the sole shareholder of this all capitals legal person. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have the obligation, not me. You signed the deal. So that's your thing. That's the ticket. What can they say to that? What can they say? How can the judge possibly claim that he has jurisdiction over you if you have not done wrong, if you have only broken a statute, which there's no injured party in a statute. It's not God's law. It's man's law. You know, you're under your common law right to be free. So all you're doing is that this corporation, the Crown Corporation of London, is claiming that you broke one of their rules. So it's claiming, therefore, that you have a contract with it and that you are performing a duty for them when the complaint was made against you. And, you know, people will argue, so, well, you've got a driver's license and you're driving on a road and you've got a registered car. This makes you, the government owns your car because it's registered and they own you because you've got a license. Well, okay, well, I would say that I've got the car registered in case I would like to work for the government. I've got a license in case I'd like to work for the government. They're there with me in case I ever want to use them, but I'm not using them at the moment. And if you're claiming I was performing a function for your corporation when I was driving my car on the road, then again, show me the contract. Show me the pay slip. Show me the payroll slip. Tell me what function I was required to perform. Tell me how I agreed to anything. Show me how there was full disclosure. Show me the contract that I have with your corporation. Because I believe you are this Crown Corporation that's masquerading as the Queen of England. But if you're not, you have to show me. You have to put the onus on them to show you and ask them, are you this corporation? Who are you representing? Do you represent Elizabeth from the House of Windsor, or do you represent the Crown Corporation of London? Because it's all contract law. The whole lot's contract law. So you just got to know how to approach it.
Yeah, that's great. We'll see. with my presentation on law and the history there, I did have a second part. Serena was on, and she had some remedies that were based on Frank O'Connor's information there at Ucadia and oneheaven.org. And as it happened, the process for collapsing the trusts changed. Now, sorry? Yeah, good. Okay. So we've got another 15 minutes then before the hour. So I'd like to just close then, Max, by saying that I'm going to be pointing people to your Crowhouse. It was the crowhouse.com?
Yeah, the crowhouse.com.
The crowhouse.com for this simple remedy, because I'm still pointing people to Frank O'Collins, of course, but it seems to me like a very, very complicated system with what Frank's doing. Hopefully he'll simplify it, but this is quite good, and I have had many inquiries. People have been emailing me saying, where's Serena's second part to the remedies and how to collapse the trust and everything like that, and I've already started pointing them there, and I said, look, there will be a letter that you can use to send in to the district, to the Attorney General, and that will be available on the crowhouse.com within a couple of weeks or so. So I'm pointing them there.
Yeah, well, okay. Absolutely. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a letter that is essentially more guidelines, because, like I said, it's not about filling in the blanks. It's about competency. You've really got to understand how this works, and I can't just give people a letter where they fill in the blanks and send it in and thrust them into this world that they have no understanding of. They've really got to get an understanding of how it works. That I really, really recommend that people go and watch the trust law workshops that are posted on the Crowhouse by Dean Clifford. They're very, very informative, and they give you a very, very simple understanding of how this works. So that's something that people really do need to do. And that's the way it's got to be approached. I mean, you've got to get an understanding of it. You really do. So I'm quite happy to write up a guideline form, but I'm not going to do something where people will just fill in the blanks, because I think it would be irresponsible of me to do so. People will just go and get themselves in trouble if they don't really know how to stand in this. You've really got to stand in it and know who and what you are. And you've got to know that you are free, because you are. We are all, totally free, and we can really, really easily deal with this problem by simply knowing that and standing in our power and holding these trustees accountable for their actions. And like I said, I don't want to jail them. I don't want to hurt them in any way. I just want to dismiss them from their role, because they're not doing a very good job. But the reason they're getting away with it is because we have never claimed our right to administer our own trusts. And that's what we need to do more than anything.
Yeah, let's change that.
And look, with what Frank O'Collins and stuff are doing, I mean, this has been an ongoing process with everybody. There's been so many people that have gone down so many different rabbit holes, and I've done so myself. And we find these remedies, and we find these really complicated ways of doing things, but the easiest way is always the best, and the simplest way is very often the best way. And when you really look at it and you see that this is simply a three-part agreement, it's simply a private trust, and all of the trusts that they've got us involved in, they're talking about collapsing these trusts. You can collapse these trusts immediately by simply establishing which crown you are dealing with, because obviously there wasn't full disclosure, and establishing yourself as the administrator of your all capitals legal fiction name that already exists. And that will automatically restore your rights and collapse all the other trusts, because none of these contracts are valid because there wasn't full disclosure, there wasn't consent, there wasn't valuable consideration. So what I'm essentially saying is, if you're not part of their system, and you know you're not part of their system, you know who and what you are, then you don't have to play by their rules, and go down all these complicated avenues and collapse all of these fictional trusts, because everything below man is fiction, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, very good. Thanks, Max. Appreciate you explaining all this, and I hope that everyone's benefited from that, and they can go to your website and study up on it. And I do recommend it. That I was watching him today, and he's very good. He's got some. This is the remedy that he's sharing with people, and he's doing wonderful things. He's got a beautiful manner about him, and he's very clear, very concise, and he explains things so well. He's got just a whiteboard and some markers. Pretty much how I do my presentations. Quite simple. It certainly makes me rejoice, because I don't like complicated things, and I've had a bit of a struggle with the process.
Shit always fucking happens. So fucking stupid.
A wealth of information. He has gone deep into the history, and I've learned most of what I'm doing through him. So I always point people to his information, because it is so deep and so profound. He's discovered a lot of
You know, you sold me a car. I told you that I was a week. And back it up. I mean, show me claim, because I'm the sole shareholder here, and only shareholders can appoint administrators. So I've come here under the assumption that you're the trustee, and they have to then prove you wrong. Because it's all about presumption, isn't it? You know, when you're in court, it's all about presumption. So you're just presuming that this is what's happening. You know, I've actually lodged documents and said I didn't want to come down here, but you guys insisted, and so now I've come down here as a director and CEO of this legal person in order to have a chat in front of the trustee to inform you that I don't appreciate you messing with my company, because I'm the one who calls board meetings for my legal person, not you guys. I have no contract with your corporation.
Yeah, beautiful. And I wonder, do you know anyone, or have you yourself asked that question in a court? Are you a public servant to the judge?
I haven't myself. I haven't been to court for a while. I just don't seem to attract that energy. But I mean, like I said, it's not about me going to court. I don't really want to battle anyone. I just want to have humanity know that they're free. I've been trying to tell them, I've done so many shows trying to explain how reality works to people and just let people know that they are free. And what I find exciting about trust law is I can say, well, look, now if you view your birth certificate from the right perspective and look at the arrangement you're actually in with the government, I can prove that you're free. You know, do you feel free yet? You know, because I think it's really important that humanity realises that they are free, and that we start putting these governments back into their rightful place as public trustees, and realise what a terrible job they're doing as trustees. Because all of these wars and the fracking and all the stuff that's going on the planet at the moment is because the trustees are out of control, because we, the shareholders, are not appointing the correct directors of our trust. And that's what it all comes down to.
It's pretty simple when you see it like that, isn't it? It's just so
It is. It's absolutely simple. See, that's the thing. People make it very, very complicated, but really the truth is so simple. It's so ridiculously simple that most people simply can't see the forest for the trees. They think there must be revolutions to be waged, or all this endless paperwork to fill out, and all these things and steps they have to do, and all these little tricks that they do to try to collapse these trusts and all this sort of stuff. All we have to do is claim our right to administer our own trust that already exists with these people. Simply step into the role that you were born to be, and start making these trustees act the way the administrators tell them to act.
Now, what if the judge says, okay, well, no, this is our trust. This is the government owns it completely, and you can't do that. Is there any chance that they will do that?
They may try that, but you say, well, by whose authority? Show me by whose authority. Where is the contract that shows that I, as the sole shareholder, gave you permission to do that? Produce a contract where there was certainty of terms, where there was full disclosure, and there was valuable consideration. You need those three things to even have a valid contract. So show me the contract where I agreed that you could administer this. Because what I'm seeing here on my birth certificate is me as the sole shareholder. And I'm seeing that my parents were the grantor, of course. So when I became 14 years old, I became the sole shareholder and grantor. And so I believe I can appoint myself the administrator. You guys actually signed off on the deal. Your signature is on this document. Not my signature, not my parents' signature, but your signature, the signature of the Registrar of Births, Deaths and Marriages. That shows obligation. Any document that I've signed means that I'm obligated to perform a certain task. It means that I'm appointing myself trustee, or I've been appointed, or I've agreed to be trustee because I signed off on the deal. You know, you sold me a car. I told you that I'd pay you $100 a week. I signed the deal. Now I'm in trust to pay that. I'm required to pay that. I have an obligation to fulfill. You, the government, signed this document, which clearly shows me as the sole shareholder of this all capitals legal person. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have the obligation, not me. You signed the deal. So that's your thing. That's the ticket. What can they say to that? What can they say? How can the judge possibly claim that he has jurisdiction over you if you have not done wrong, if you have only broken a statute, which there's no injured party in a statute. It's not God's law. It's man's law. You know, you're under your common law right to be free. So all you're doing is that this corporation, the Crown Corporation of London, is claiming that you broke one of their rules. So it's claiming, therefore, that you have a contract with it and that you are performing a duty for them when a complaint was made against you. And you know, people will argue, so well, you've got a driver's license and you're driving on a road and you've got a registered car. This makes you, the government owns your car because it's registered and they own you because you've got a license. Well, okay, well, I would say that I've got the car registered in case I would like to work for the government. I've got a license in case I'd like to work for the government. They're there with me in case I ever want to use them, but I'm not using them at the moment. And if you're claiming I was performing a function for your corporation when I was driving my car on the road, then again, show me the contract. Show me the pay slip. Show me the payroll slip. Tell me what function I was required to perform. Tell me how I agreed to anything. Show me how there was full disclosure. Show me the contract that I have with your corporation. Because I believe you are this Crown Corporation that's masquerading as the Queen of England. But if you're not, you have to show me. You have to put the onus on them to show you and ask them, are you this corporation? Who are you representing? Do you represent Elizabeth from the House of Windsor, or do you represent the Crown Corporation of London? Because it's all contract law. The whole lot's contract law. So you just got to know how to approach it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, see, I with my presentation on law and the history there, I did have a second part. Serena was on, and she had some remedies that were based on Franco Collins' information there at Ucadia and oneheaven.org. And as it happened, the process for collapsing the trusts changed. Now, sorry? Yeah, good, okay. So we've got another 15 minutes then before the hour. So I'd like to just close then, Max, by saying that I'm going to be pointing people to your Crowhouse. What's the crowhouse.com?
Yeah, the crowhouse.com.
The crowhouse.com for this simple remedy, because I'm still pointing people to Franco Collins, of course, but it seems to me like a very, very complicated system with what Frank's doing. Hopefully he'll simplify it, but this is quite good, and I have had many inquiries. People have been emailing me saying, where's Serena's second part to the remedies and how to collapse the trust and everything like that, and I've already started pointing them there, and I said, look, there will be a letter that you can use to send in to the district, to the Attorney General, and that will be available on the crowhouse.com within a couple of weeks or so. So I'm pointing them there.
Yeah, well, look,
okay.
Absolutely. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a letter that is essentially more guidelines, because, like I said, it's not about filling in the blanks. It's about competency. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a letter that is essentially more guidelines, because, like I said, it's not about filling in the blanks. It's about competency. You've really got to understand how this works, and I can't just give people a letter where they fill in the blanks and send it in and thrust them into this world that they have no understanding of. They've really got to get an understanding of how it works. I really, really recommend that people go and watch the final understanding, really.
Well, this is it, and Franco Collins has got looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, it's very simple, really. I mean, it's always hidden in plain sight. It really is, and it's very empowering to find it. It really is. But I mean, all credit to Frank's work as well. I mean, it's been an ongoing process for all of us to get to this high harmonic. But that's basically where we're going, and it's all part of the awakening process. So everybody's work's been valid, and it's all added to the final understanding, really.
Well, this is it, and Franco Collins has got help from many, many people, and he's forever accepting the help, and which is good, because he can't do it all on his own. But he has a wealth of information. He has gone deep into the history, and I've learned most of what I'm doing through him. So I always point people to his information, because it is so deep and so profound. He's discovered a lot of this dark history. And before I stumbled across Franco Collins, I was doing I was into all the other guys like your Rob Menards and your Tim Turner and stuff like that, which are great. You know, they're great. But when you understand trust law, it seems it has edge over the
It does. I mean, a lot of these people, they're still operating in law, and they're still operating sort of in corporate law, and they're working around loopholes and things, and the difference between statutes and acts and all this sort of stuff. But they're really not looking at it from a perspective of trust law, and you'll never ever be free until you can look at it from that perspective. But most of all, like I said at the beginning, you've got to establish your preeminent trust with whatever you perceive the Creator to be. You've really got to know who and what you are, and stand in that, and know that nobody is any better than you. We are all equal in the eyes of God, and that's where you have to be. And don't fear these people. Don't fear the suits. Don't fear any of this stuff, and don't even go to court if you can help it. I mean, courts are even designed in such a way as to put you in fear and to help you lose your power and your energy as soon as you walk in there. It is geometrically designed to do this. And the whole energy of the place, it's designed to take your power away from you. So even once you know this stuff, it's very difficult to go in there and stand in it. So rather than go through all that discomfort, deal with it administratively because you have the power to do so. You've just got to do it. You've just got to seek this remedy. And your argument isn't with the court anyway. Your argument is with the one who brought the claim against you, and that's the Crown. So you need to direct your correspondence to the Crown and establish what authority they actually have over you. And once they don't respond to your affidavits and you've got record of it all, then they've agreed by default, because it's all about presumption, and claims that are made that aren't rebutted then stand as facts. And so that's it. You've got everything that you need to dismiss the case.
Too good. Thank you very much, Max. I appreciate you coming on and helping us that. You've been busy presenting tonight, and so you've just come home from that, and here you are sharing this with us. So I'd like to thank you very, very much, and we need to keep in touch with this and work forward, go forward. Thank you so kindly.
And my pleasure. Thanks for asking me on, Sam.
No worries. And now I'll drop you off then from Skype if I know how to do that, or you can just... Oh, thank you. Jack's going to do that, and then I'll just spend the next 5 minutes winding up. How's that? See you then, Max.
Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
What if I were to tell you that the purpose of our highest potential is to transcend limited thinking?
With 284 million people suffering from anxiety in 2017, and the figure...
No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
You're with Santos Bonacci for the next 2 hours, and I have very special guests lined up today. And I will have also, toward the end of the show, David Whitehead will join me for the last segment. He is going to be looking after the shows while I'm away in Ecuador for the month of May. So he'll be joining us to share with you the great guest that he's got lined up to present some great shows on American Freedom Radio. So thanks for joining. It's April the 24th on Wednesday here in Melbourne, 12 p.m. And great weather here in Melbourne. 5 days till I fly off to Ecuador, so I am very excited, preparing my suitcase as I speak, and just really looking forward to a great time making a documentary on syncretism, science of light. And also we'll be doing some presentations in Ecuador, so I'm very excited about this. And without further ado, I have my very special guest and great friend today, Max Egan. Welcome, Max.
Nice to be on the show again, Santos. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, look, it's a pleasure, and I'm just excited to have you because, for one reason too, is that I interviewed my neighbour last week on this show, and his
Bluetooth connected.
He's Palestinian, and he has made a great documentary called Return to Gaza. And we've had many conversations over the fence with Fatah. And the documentary won many awards around the world, and he's currently making a new one, which is dealing with the war that happened a few years ago there, and where 12 or 1,300 people perished in that war.
and he's got raw footage and lots of great new information, and he's going to make a repeat, or he's going to make a second documentary on that subject. And he's Palestinian, and he's seen the suffering. And I spoke to him about you and Ken O'Keefe, because you were there last year, and you actually were in those tunnels underground that you have to go through to get to Gaza. And I remember you saying that you thought to yourself, what the hell am I doing here? Am I going to come out of this tunnel alive? And yet, you know, you were able to do so, and you built some benches and desks and what have you for the schools there. And Fatah was very happy to hear that. And so, fresh on the heels of that, I've got you back again. So,
Battery low.
No, it's always a pleasure, mate. Look, people have got to pay attention to what's going on in Gaza. It was really interesting going in there the way we did, because we sort of didn't go in through any official means. It was probably pretty stupid when I think back on it. I mean, it's probably not one of the more intelligent things I've done, but, you know, you sort of sneak into a war zone so you can help the kids. But I'm really glad that I did it, you know, because it was a really enriching experience. I do hope to go back there within the next couple of months. I'm actually still in contact with a lot of the people from Gaza. I got a video call from someone just yesterday, actually. A couple of Muslim ladies in Gaza called me to say hello, tell them that they're graduating from university soon. Some of the university students that I interviewed over there, I made some great friends amongst these kids and amongst some of the teachers and some of the families over there while I was there. Great people. And I'm hoping to go back there this year.
oh, great. Where can people see those videos you made? Because I remember I was following you as you were overseas, and I watched them all, and they're just great. You and Ken were just having a ball. Where can people click on those to have a look at those?
Well, they're on the cronehouse.com, my website. They'll find them on YouTube. Just look for Max Egan and Ken O'Keefe, Gaza. Just do a search for that, and you should find 2 or 3 videos that we made while we were over there. We did one called 10 Days in Gaza, which just sort of highlighted the trip and a little bit of what we did and what we saw while we were there. And we did another one where it was a breakdown of a Zionist lobbyist in the United States, sort of trying to push for war in Iran. We just saw this clip and we couldn't believe it, so we made a little satire of it while we were on the rooftop in Gaza. And we made another one just called Freestyle Gaza Rooftop, where it was the day after we arrived, or 2 days up.
It's okay, we'll fix it up. What's this? What's this? We'll fix it after.
We arrived. And we were just there. We thought, well, we snuck into this place. We probably should let the world know that we're here. So we made a video and put it up on YouTube. You know, just to let the people in Gaza know we were there as well. I mean, just to let everybody know where we were. Because we kind of went in there by no official means at all. So, quite off our own accord. So it was kind of an interesting thing to do. It was a little bit sort of spy versus spy. We didn't go through any of the official tunnels that you see on television or that you hear about, any of the Hamas-controlled tunnels. What we went through was a tiny little dirt tunnel that was over 1 kilometre long, and you had to crawl through. You were like 50 metres underground, and it was only high enough to crawl most of the way. And so it wasn't any of the official tunnels. This was made by kids, basically. And it was a really interesting experience, you know. And I had no idea where it'd even be or where we came out. Like, you know, we were kind of bundled in and bundled out, and you kind of looked at it and thought, well, I wonder if I'm crawling into my own grave here, because it's just this little tunnel. And you think, I don't know how long it's going to be. And I was trying to torch down it, and it was pretty long. And you think, oh, well, it's pretty long. But after you've been in there for almost an hour, you start thinking, how long is this tunnel, you know? So it was kind of an interesting journey to be underground long in those sort of conditions. But it was really worth it, though, you know.
I would love to have done it. I'm very, very adventurous. The kind of things I did when I was growing up in country Victoria. Oh, look, you think that's crazy? I used to jump off bridges, do somersaults, and land in a river that was only sort of 5 foot of water or something like that. I used to bolt on virtually racehorses, bareback, chasing kangaroos in my my uncle used to have a property nearby on a hill, and kangaroos everywhere. You imagine me just bolting. I refused to have a saddle, and I've fallen off so many times. I should have been dead. But yeah, I would love that adventure.
It was a real adventure, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen Ken's latest beautiful, say, 10-minute video on Iran? Have you seen that one?
Yeah, fantastic. It's great that he went there to the conference, the Hollywoodism conference, and he gave the people a real vision of what Iran's really like. People need to know what it's like. I mean, it's a beautiful place. I mean, people need to know what the Arab world is really like. You can find a link in the links and articles on my website. I'll find it for you and I'll give you the exact name of it. But it just shows how deeply propaganda reigns and how much damage we've done. It's called From Afghanistan to Syria, Women's Rights, War Propaganda and the CIA. And if you take that link or if you Google that title, you'll find an article which shows what Afghanistan was in the 70s, okay? You've got women walking around in miniskirts and normal college clothing with their hair out, wearing jewelry, and it's a Western society. It's a perfectly normal, Western, vibrant society where everybody's free. And then you see what happened after the West got involved. And you see the suppression of women, where women are forced to wear burqas, and it became all very, very hard line. And then, of course, the West pushes, well, look, we've got this problem in the Middle East. It's all very, very hard line, and women are suppressed. We need to go in and save the women and save the people. So they're going to wage war against these countries. But they were all very progressive countries. You look at Iran back in 1954 when Mossadegh was in charge of Iran, before he was deposed by the CIA. It was the first successful coup the CIA ever pulled off, was actually the dispossession of Mossadegh, the overthrow of the Mossadegh government and the imposition of the Shah in 1954. And Iran was a progressive nation, a free-thinking people. There was no religious oppression. There were no hardliners. It was all going along just fine until they decided they wanted to keep the oil for their own country. So we've created all of these extremist conditions. We've found the extremists. The West has found the extremist factions, and we've promoted them to become the main government of these regions. It's all been done by the West. It's all been puppeteered, the whole thing, in order to create this East-West conflict. But you've got to look back and see the damage that we've done, how it's all been set up. You can't blame any of these people. It's been an ongoing plan. It's like a social pathogen that's injected into certain societies to mould them into a certain way. It affects these societies in a certain way. And it's literally like a psychic pathogen that infects people. And then you pit them against each other, divide and conquer, auto ape KO, the whole thing. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah. I saw a great documentary a couple of days ago where it showed how the Bush family, the Kennedys, and all of these, Joseph Kennedy, that is, the father of JFK, he was more sort of criminally-minded. But the Bushes and all of these, Harriman, the railroad people, and Carnegie, and all of these families, they actually funded the Bolsheviks. They funded three powers: the Bolsheviks, the Nazis at the beginning, and the Husseinis or the Wasabis in Arabia, and all for oil, all for power, and it's been exposed now. It's very, very open now, and many people know this. The history of bloodshed that we've had for the last 100 years or so has come from these corporate families, the money families, and all of these horrible coups like the one you just mentioned in Iran for oil, is masterminded by these criminal gangs, the alphabet gangs, and never forget the Jesuits. They're always behind all of the trouble. I mean, they will be the masterminds behind it all, really. Everything for the Vatican. So you can lump the Zionists, the Bilderbergers, the CIA, Mossad, and all of these creepy entities in there. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. Max, what's your...
Look, I think they're all part of the same mechanism. I think that when we look at the Vatican, we're looking at a mechanism rather than a group of individuals. I mean, there's a group of individuals that are in control of these mechanisms. These individuals are complete psychopaths, of course. You can look at things such as the predator mind. If you look at Castaneda's work, and look at the work of people like John Lash, the concept of the archons, the archonic mind that controls a lot of these sort of people. I mean, it's very likely that something like that's going on. See, what the real problem is the mechanism itself. You know what I mean? The mechanism is so diabolically clever. You know, where do we go with it? I mean, what we've got to do is realise that it's there and realise that it's fiction, really. I mean, it only exists on paper. We can deal with all of this. I really believe we can if we understand that it's just paper. It's just, even the government isn't real. The government only exists in a book. People with expensive suits go to these big buildings that set up these magnetic fields and these geometric fields around them, makes them feel important, and they look at these books and they do what these books tell them. And if they can't find something in there to do, then they create something and they put it in the book and say, well, now it's in the book, it's law, it means I can now do this, you know. And that's all governments do, is they make rules. They just make more and more rules. It's a self-perpetuating system, but it's all fiction. Ultimately, it's all fiction. It only exists on paper. So it's kind of hard to get that through to people. But, you know, that's what we need to get through to people. It's difficult.
Yep.
It's a pathogen, though. I mean, all of this stuff, we've got social pathogens, economic pathogens, religious pathogens, you know. And, I mean, you can look at the whole system, and I've pointed the finger at so many people for so many years about who to blame for all this. But really, what the problem is that we've got a case of mass mind control where people are quite literally living in a paper-based matrix that only exists on paper, just rules that were written down. It's a paper-based reality, and that they're kept under mind control, believing that this reality is real. And it's not. And really, all the people you point your finger at, ultimately it's yourself, because you've got the power to change all of this by stepping into the power that you have, by realising that your creator, whatever you perceive that to be, created your consciousness, which created society, which created government. All of this is man-made. Everything below man is fiction. We created the whole thing. We made it all up. So we have the power to change that, you know, but we can't respect ourselves. We don't believe in the power of ourselves, and we can't respect others because we're kept locked into these economic and social pathogens. We judge ourselves by certain rungs that we've attained on the social ladder, which is all related to the whole economic pathogen. We've got to profit from everybody. Everybody's kept in shortage, which is the purpose of money, to keep people in scarcity. So they're always kept in competition with each other. They exploit each other. Even like things like multi-level marketing, you know. Turn all your friends into a commodity. Turn them all into a business opportunity. What a great way to live, you know.
Hey, I've got to share with you. I was with Amway. Can you believe that?
Yeah, well, you know, these sorts of things, this is what they're designed to do. They lock you into that economic pathogen, whereby you start seeing everybody as a business opportunity. It's all about money. Yep. And once you start collecting money, that affects your mind like a pathogen, no matter how much you have. Well, I thought I was going to need this much for my security, but now I'm thinking about it, I reckon I might need a little bit more. And then I've got that, okay, I think I'm going to need more. Because deep down inside, you know, you're going to be dispossessed as well, you know. And so we all mollycoddle and we look up to the people above us in our business world, because we think once the rung falls from under us, if we're nice to these guys, they'll help us, they'll give us a helping hand up. But they won't, because they know that they're going to fail as well eventually. And so people keep looking at their slave masters. It's like Stockholm Syndrome. You know, the celebrities walk in, the Queen walks in, we know she's a slave trader. She owns trillions of dollars, all these people starving and dispossessed all around the world, and here's her driving around in gold carriages, owns 3/4 of the world. And we all go, oh, isn't she lovely? No, she's a slave trader, and you've all got Stockholm Syndrome. That's the problem, you know.
And to boot, she eats your babies that she steals.
Well, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to go there, but the fact.
Oh, I certainly will. Hey, I remember just talking about Amway there. I remember you said preying on people. Yeah, I remember preying on my family even, you know, to join so that I could be, you know, financially secure. This is only like 6 or 7 years ago, Max. It's just incredible. And now I open my eyes and realise that they are a pathetic pyramid scheme with criminal intentions, basically, manipulating people. That's all it is. All right, folks, first break. We'll come back in a few short minutes. Thank you. We are talking about how to get off Maggie's farm with Max Egan, and beautiful summation of geopolitics and the way things really are in the first segment, Max. Beautiful the way that flows from your lips. Best 10 minutes of summation of what's really going on around the world. Just on the religious side of things through the break, how about we do a bit of that, because they go after them too. So I love hearing you dissect them.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about before with the economic. If you can think of the economic understanding, the economic system as a pathogen that affects your mind in a certain way, makes you view everybody as a business opportunity, keeps you in shortage so that no matter how much you've got, you've never really got enough. You know, and it also creates social division, so that once you start accumulating things, it allows you to insulate yourself from the people below you on the social rung. So as they get discarded, you think, well, hang on, I can't really help you because I don't quite have enough. You allow people to be discarded below you, and eventually it just keeps going up the chain. So we end up, we mollycoddle to those above us, hoping that they will rescue us when our time comes.
You want to bring her down?
Because inside they know they're not the losers either. They know that they may lose everything as well. We become fearful of homeless and all this sort of stuff. But as we get discarded, we perceive that it's okay because it says in the religious systems that we have to be discarded. Things have to get really bad, but it's okay because once our backs are really, really to a wall and everything looks like it's all lost, then a miraculous supernatural figure is going to appear and perform a superhuman action which is suddenly going to save everybody and the whole world will be saved. And it's okay. We have to let it get bad. We have to love those who oppress us. That's basically what religion tells us to do. But it's okay because a superhuman off-world figure is going to come down and save you. Don't you think you can do anything, because you can't, because you're flawed. You're just a human. You made all these mistakes. It says so in this book. So we're enslaved to the written word. We know what we're taught to know. And it says here in this book that this is the way reality works, so we adopt that reality on as our own, and we allow the world to be degraded around us and humanity to be discarded at the whim of the social and economic pathogens that affect people's mind by the mechanism of the religious pathogen that's fed to us. It tells us this is how it has to all be. But it's okay because this figure's going to come and save you. And this is in all of the religions, all the main religions, like Judaism, Islam, Christianism. All of them talk about a saviour coming from an external source. It's always a patriarchal figure. It's always based in pain and redemption. And if you look at the Christian symbolism, I mean, you've got people wearing this dead, tortured man around their neck.
It's grotesque.
It is. It's shocking. People are worshipping pain and suffering. And they're making you think that it's okay to suffer. Suffering is good because suffering, it says the meek shall inherit the earth. Those who allow suffering to be given to them and brought upon them, and those who stay in a state of Stockholm syndrome for those who are oppressing them, will go to heaven. It says so. And you worship this suffering and this pain, and you have statues of it and this tortured man on this cross everywhere. It's sick. It really is.
Hey, Max, you might be Celsus, the 2nd century philosopher incarnated, because I'm just flicking through his book and everything you said is coming right out of his book. This is the 2nd century philosopher, listeners, Celsus. You might want to get it. It's called Celsus on the True Doctrine, a discourse against the Christians, because they were ignoramuses back then too, for all this, crap that's been written into our history that they were martyrs and great individuals. Yeah, the Gnostic Christians were, but not the morons that the Roman elite were churning out by the gazillions to undermine freedom forevermore. Celsus pointed out this. He said they're just a bunch of morons who, are waiting for someone to come along and basically wipe their bums because they're just so incompetent and incontinent. I won't read anything. I'll spare you that because I want to listen to you. But for the listeners, I just had to put that in there. And Max, you probably might want to get that book. You get it on Amazon for about $10. Rest assured, if you read this book, you will think that it was from today, from modern times. He was writing just exactly, he calls them clubs and cliques and how they, the only thing they have in common is the name Jesus and Christ, but there's so many sects and clubs that they go about slandering each other and rubbishing each other that there's just so much confusion. And this is 2,000 years ago. And we're still on air, on radio now, still having to deal with this subject of the churches and their moronic enslavement of humanity. It's the blind leading the blind.
Well, it is. I mean, it is enslavement. I mean, I don't think the people. I don't know. I wouldn't be so harsh as to call them morons. I don't think that's any way to get them back or to help them think clearly. But I mean, they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed into a doctrine, basically. I mean, it's been deeply ingrained into their psyche, and they're forced to believe this stuff. And really, it's drummed into a lot of these people from a very, very early age. That's why I find it very difficult to judge people and in anything that we've done, anything that we do, any wrong that anybody's done, anybody. I mean, I look at the society and I say, well, this is what it breeds. Everybody, all the things that they've done are a product of this society, because when you get human consciousness and you do what's been done to it, of course this is what you get. Everybody's kept in a state of scarcity, so they're all ripping each other off, they're all profiting from each other, it's all this whole big commercial ugliness, and that's what you get. I mean, really, when you look at it, I mean, the Gnostics had a great look at it. I would debate the term Gnostic Christian, though, because I believe that no true Gnostic was ever a Christian. I think that Gnosis and Christianity are diametrically opposed. Even as far as the God goes, I highly recommend people look into the work of John Lash. I think John's done some fantastic research as far as Gnostics go. And like even when you look at the Nag Hammadi writings, I mean, I started reading the Nag Hammadi writings around about the beginning of last year, and I kind of got halfway through them, or three-quarters of the way through them when I went away. And just before I went away, I discovered John Lash's work. And then I've recently read his book where he gives a very, very good breakdown of the Nag Hammadi writings from the perspective of a Gnostic, because John Lash is a Gnostic. So you look at the Nag Hammadi writings and you find they're actually translated by Christians. So they've all got a Christian slant on them. When you look at it, you've got to think back, what are they really saying here? Because this has been given to me from a Christian perspective, But
the Christianity, though, that I'm referring to is the ancient Christianity that came from the heart of Egypt thousands of years before Rome, made it, an expression that it appeared to be a new thing on the scene. In fact, Augustine in the 4th century said there was never a time on this planet that there was not Christianity. It has always been here because it's the science of light, and it's a sister of Judaism and Islam by virtue of it being the same science. And that's what I've proven in my presentations. It may have had a different name, but it's all the same religion / science. It's basically just pure science gone wrong. And the worst of it was the Christian period of the Romans, just an aberration.
Yeah, well, of course. I question science itself. I mean, really, if you look at some of the stuff in the Gnostic teachings, the whole geometric reality that we live in, it's all very, very scientific, and it's like there's something here that's attempting to reverse engineer reality, reverse engineer life, find out how to create life. I mean, why is our science, our modern science, so directed at mapping the human genome and attempting to find the God particle? Like, we're building bigger and bigger colliders to try to find the God particle, what we're calling it. You know what I mean? What was a Higgs boson? They think they might have found a Higgs boson, but of course now they've found a Higgs boson, they're going to have to build a bigger collider so they can start colliding Higgs bosons together to see if it's a smaller particle. Because they've got a Higgs boson, but hey, how come it isn't conscious? How come it hasn't got the essence of life to it? Why can't I find the particle, the piece of matter that will give me consciousness? We want to be able to find a way of taking the rocks and the chemicals from reality and combining them in a way that will give us a being that is alive the way we are, that has a soul, that can think, that has consciousness. But we can't do it. Of course we can't do it, because consciousness isn't local to the body. Consciousness comes from the field. So why is all of our science directed at this? And really when you start looking at some of the Gnostic theory of why this is so, it's quite remarkable. And from that, I see all religion as construct. I see all science as constructs. Some of the experiences that I had during ceremony in Peru really, really confirmed this for me as well. And recently, did you hear the talk that Graham Hancock did? Apparently it was banned.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. And so was, what's his name? The other guy.
Sheldrake. Rupert
Sheldrake, yeah.
Well, what Graham Hancock said in that was absolutely phenomenal. It really, really is amazing food for thought about how we actually started creating art when we started experimenting with entheogenic plants. He's, of course, been to all these places, and he's dated the artwork, so he would know more than most people because he's done a lot of research in this area. And when I heard him say that one of the most, the biggest crimes that's been committed against humanity is the way we've been locked out of these higher senses and locked away from these entheogenic plants. And in his opinion, this government system that we've got has effectively changed mankind's destiny. It's deprived us of living up to our destiny. These plants were put here in order for us to learn and to grow into what we should and could be. And we've been deprived from that. We've been sent down this total scientific-based mathematical reality where everything is a construct. Every single thing that's written in a book is a construct. Every mathematical program is a construct. All of this geometry that's all around us, it's all a construct, a whole lot of it. And we should have higher instincts and higher senses. If we were left to have pure bodies, eating pure food, living in a pure environment, we would have higher senses online. We would have more DMT active in our body. Our instincts would be online, and we'd be communicating with reality in a completely different way to what we are. And that's what people are missing. And even if we bring down this system, we've got so far to go to get us back to what we should be. And that's what the big problem that we're facing. And really, when you look at what's been done, it's so important that we rein this system in now. This generation, because our kids are being programmed. Unfortunately, they're being programmed into an electronic world from a very, very early age. And there's a lot of kids that are awake. A lot of the younger generation are out there doing it, but there's a lot of them as well that are programmed and getting more and more programmed. The IQ is getting lower and lower. And people just aren't prepared to think this way. They're living virtually in a matrix, in a paper-based reality, a virtual reality, and there's so much more that we could be experiencing. And I think it's really important that our generation get up and make some noise. We've got to start respecting each other. We've got to start forgiving each other. Doesn't matter if people wronged you. They did so because of this system. Forgive them. Get over it. It's petty. It's nothing compared to what we face. The whole world needs to step back and just let all that stuff go. It doesn't matter what we did. It matters what we do. And we really do need to do something. We need to pay attention. We could very, very easily fix it, but the first thing we have to do is respect ourselves and respect each other. And until you truly respect yourself, you can't respect each other. And until you truly forgive yourself, you can't forgive those around you. And those who can't forgive just simply can't. Well, someone did something against you. They did the crime. Now you're doing the time. Why can't you forgive? Are you infected by some type of psychopathic mentality where you believe all this fictional stuff is real? Because it's not. None of it's real. None of the social constructs are real. None of the material wealth. It's all prefab stuff that's going to break. You're going to lose it. It isn't you. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. You don't own it. It owns you. The more stuff you own, the less you can do because you've got to worry about all your stuff, So you can't go and do anything. You're never free because you've got all this stuff hanging off you that you don't need. It's a construct. You've collected all this stuff because you think it gives you social standing. It doesn't. Your social standing is who you are. What about that? Why did you miss out on who you are and finding yourself because you thought it was in all this stuff? It doesn't matter what happens anyway because this supernatural being is going to come and save me in the end anyway, so that's all good, You can see what's happened to humankind, so... we've got a long way to go, Santos, to get back.
Yeah, Oh, yeah, we have, Max. I'm aware of that. You know, I had a few great guests before the end of 2012, like Jay Widener and John Anthony West, and we spoke about what could possibly happen after the 21st of December 2012, and we were all positive and hopeful that we would have a great paradigm shift and we would be living in a much more, fraternal or brotherly, sisterly kind of world. And yes, there has been some great changes for sure, but we still see the one percenters and the cabal still resisting the changes, and their supporters and foot soldiers are still happily, clapping them on. Like you said, people rock up to wherever the Queen is. They turn up to celebrate her crimes over us. It's funny how we love.
Drops of that for you? Well, yes, I have.
And folks, we're with special guest Max Egan today. So call lines are going to go open in the next segment. And if you want to ask a question, call in. Do so as quick as possible, because Max will only be with us for 2 segments, answering questions in the next hour. And then we have David Whitehead, who will join me to share with you the great lineup of guests that we've got for May, as I will be unable to host the shows. So, I probably may be able to join in, but I'm going to be pretty busy in Ecuador. There's a lot of work that we're going to be doing. So, caller lines will be opened up in the next hour. Thank you. Yeah, Max, so we see that all the constructs of this solar system, really they're just everything that's been handed down to us has been rather fictional. And people have been sold the lie and are participating in the lie. And you did mention something very nice during the break, and very forgiving, that if we look at ourselves 10, 20 years ago, me in particular, I was a Jehovah's Witness, involved in building a house and, doing the business things. I was selling homes, making good money, 6 figures, selling brand new homes as a salesman in the 90s. And we were sold that illusion, and we were climbing the social ladder. I remember buying new cars and all sorts of things. And so we can take a glimpse at how we were sold the fiction and we were participating in it.
Bluetooth pairing.
And that will help us to be more forgiving. So, good point there, Max.
Put a bunch of meat pies.
Well, you've got to. I mean, we're all
when it beeps,
stuck into this system at one stage. Everybody has done lots of things that they may regret, because that's what this system gives you to live. I mean, that's what you have to do. You're told that this is how reality works. Make it work. But sometimes you can't make it work. It just doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for some people. You find yourself profiting. You find yourself doing all these things because you think that this will bring you happiness, this will bring you success. And you really haven't been given any playing field. So when you look at people that are asleep, people that argue, people that profit from you, people that do bad things, you can't really judge them because you haven't been given an even playing field. They're not even playing on an even playing field, and they don't even know it. But they're a product of this society. If we can put all that away and forgive each other and move forward, we can change things. But you've got to look at the mistakes that you made. Like when you were a Jehovah's Witness, you were in the system. You didn't know. You were allowing all of this stuff to be perpetuated because you lived in your little bubble, and reality worked that way for you. And you can look now and you can see that and you can go, yeah, wow, I was like that, but now I've woken up. But you see that with yourself. And so how can you judge yourself for anything you did while you're in that bubble? And when you really, truly see that about yourself, how can you judge anybody for what they did? Because they're all in that bubble. They're all a product of this system. You have to forgive them. because you're not judging them on an even playing field. The way you didn't judge yourself on an even playing field, doesn't matter what we did, it matters what we do. That's what we have to do. We have to get over this hump. But then we've got this ego thing, we've got this whole, I was wrong, I was this, I was that, whatever, it's petty. We've got bigger issues to deal with. We really, really do. When you look at how far disconnected we are from reality and the damage that this system is doing to the planet because we are too busy bickering amongst ourselves over issues that are essentially petty, that were created by the system in order to divide and conquer us, we see a bigger picture. We see that it is all petty, and if we would simply respect ourselves, and if you can really, really, truly forgive yourself of what you've done, and truly forgive yourself for who you've been at those worst times in your life, then you can forgive other people. Because if you can truly do it to yourself because you see what reality is, then forgiving other people happens by default, because they're not operating on an even playing field either. So, once we do this and we really respect ourselves, then we can start respecting other people around us. Now, I would put it to you that if you don't respect other people, and if you're having a hard time forgiving other people, it's because you don't really, truly respect yourself and wish to forgive yourself. Or if you might be pretending you do, but perhaps you don't fully forgive yourself. And perhaps you're scared of your own personal power, because we all have this power of forgiveness and this power to change, the power to see things as they really are. I mean, this is a construct. It's a matrix designed to do exactly what it's done. That's the thing, It's very, very clever, and it's been designed to divide us, and it's done a fantastic job. But ultimately, I believe all of the issues that people have with each other are essentially petty issues, because when you really look at the condition of the planet, the condition of the human race, and what we're actually capable of and how far we've been led from that, it's all petty. We've got a lot to deal with here. We've got a long way to get back, and we've got to put all this stuff behind it and let it go.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. We have a long way to go. The potential is just amazing, though. If you just stop and contemplate everybody getting it on the planet at the same time, which could happen. Why not? It's highly unlikely. It's not probable, but it's possible.
It is possible. But they try to do stuff to make sure we're not all going to get it at the same time. They keep us in fear all the time. I mean, look what just happened in Boston. I mean, look what's happening in the Middle East. Look what they're doing in Syria. Again, they're putting in another puppet government in Syria. This is what we were talking about earlier in the first section when we talked about governments, how they put in these governments, and you were saying they put in these puppet regimes. They also set up new enemies, because they're putting in a government. Now they just announced they're going to give $123 million to the rebels, the Syrian rebels, in arms to help them. They've already said that we believe the Syrian rebels have links to Al Qaeda. So now they're putting these guys in power. So then later on, we can say, oh look, no, we've got an Al Qaeda government, an Al Qaeda-backed government in Syria. So now we can go in there. So they keep people distracted with all this stuff, and they set it up. They're setting up Syria so that they can go in there within the next couple of years. They'll set it all up. Oh no, terrible! We've got an Al Qaeda-backed government. Well, then everyone's been too distracted with their new PlayStations and everything to notice that the Obama regime gave these Al Qaeda rebels $123 million to set up the new government. It's theatre. There's so much theatre going on. And again, the Boston bombing, it all brings out this fear in people and keeps them distracted.
Well, I saw the tribute that they had. The Red Sox had a game, the Boston Red Sox, and they had a game, and they had all these important, prominent figures that were involved with protecting the city. I think the mayor was there and the chief of police, and they were all lined up. And so you had one of the players who actually swore. He used the F word, and there would have been children in the stadium there, but he says, this is our effing city, and congratulations to these people here, and he points to all the figureheads that were involved in, so-called protecting the people of Boston. And rest assured, I mean, I don't speak for you, Max, but rest assured, listeners, that 90% of those people that were there were behind the actual theatre of that spectacular show. And here they are getting crowds of people clapping them and egging them on, saying, yeah, good on you, Boston police, you heroes. And it's ridiculous. It's just so funny. It looks like looks like a kindergarten level job, and yet people are falling for it. It's all on the kindergarten level.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just the way they play it. When I was looking at the bombing, I mean, perhaps I'm a little bit biased because I look at all these things and I just expect them to be a false flag. So, I mean, I don't even like to comment on them anymore because I just think that way now. I just look at them all and go, well, none of this makes sense. It's probably a false flag. But since Sandy Hook, I mean, Sandy Hook was spectacular because whether the children died, I can't make the call. Whether it was all actors, as some people say, I can't make the call. I don't know. All I'm looking at with Sandy Hook is the way it was played. There were certain things that were put in place. There was the footage of Gene Rosen rehearsing his lines. It was put on YouTube. There was just a lot of it. It was played so that it looked like it was a conspiracy, whether it wasn't or not. And through the coverage that it got, we were actually seeing the words Sandy Hook truther being used on the news and all this sort of stuff on mainstream media. So it was used to vilify the alternate research movement. And I went, aha. And I released a report on it and I spoke to people about it and I said, you're going to see this now. You're going to see these events being used to vilify the truth movement. So when I looked at the Boston bombing, so okay, well, there was all these bomb-sniffing teams around. There was, what are we supposed to expect that these people were completely useless? Why was there a bomb-sniffing team and all these sniffer dogs and all these guys there to protect the place and yet bombs went off? Weren't they there to protect? You're telling us that they're completely useless. No one's really looked at it from that angle. But you had cops running around apparently while the bombs were going off saying it's okay, it's just a training exercise and all this sort of stuff. So, these reports disappeared, I think, but I did hear reports of this. So you look at how it was played. It's played to look like a conspiracy, whether it is or not. And again, now we're hearing these bombers were possibly truthers, right? So it's all being done to vilify the alternate research community, to drive a wedge in the community.
And you did a wonderful job on that video on Sandy Hook. So we'll be back in a few short moments, folks, for the next hour. And caller lines will be open. Thank you. Max Egan with us for the next 2 segments. And I've got the caller lines open. Number is 218 339 8525. If you care to call in and have a word with Max. Right, I forget the subject. We were cut off by the music, Max. Did you want to continue from there? I'm sorry.
I think we were talking about the Boston bombings and how these things were being played. I think it's really important to look at that because a lot of this is being used to vilify the truth community. That's the way these things are being played. Because you asked me what I thought about it, who done it, basically. And, I mean, like I said, when I look at these things, I would say, if I'm looking at myself from an objective perspective, I'd say that after all the stuff I've researched, when I look at these things, I kind of have a biased opinion. I just think that they're false flags now because, I don't think that things happen with all this sort of stuff in place without them being false flags. Things like the bomb-sniffing team being there, they catch the guys so quickly on security camera, Muslims, the Chechens, the whole thing. You got the parents and the people who knew them saying, no, we don't think that they do this. One of them's conveniently dead, of course. Don't know what's going on with the other one. I mean, I just think that they're false flags. And really, I'm just looking at how it's being played because, like I said when I did my critique on the Sandy Hook thing, you're going to see these events being used to vilify the truth community, the alternate research community. And that's what's been done with this Boston bombing. The patriots, the people that are trying to stand up against gun control, that's who the attacks are aimed at. So that's how they're being played. More importantly than who did it, it's how they're being played. I mean, sometimes there's just bad people who do crazy things. I can't call it as an absolute conspiracy, say that it was an absolute false flag. But, there's all this stuff there. The guy was being handled by the FBI, everything. I mean, there's so much about it that's going to get the alternate research community standing up and speaking out about it as loudly as they can. And so while that's happening, they're calling the perpetrators part of this alternate research and truth community. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it's being played. Sure. And we're going to see this. We're going to see this more and more with these events. We're going to see it always pointing back to the alternate research community.
It's interesting to see more prominent people in the alternative research community. Have you heard of fellow by the name of David Laurie Van Der Beek. He's running for governor of Nevada, and he's putting out a few interesting videos. One recently last week was to do with the fertilizer missile event. He's done a 20-minute video, and he's showing how there's enough footage there to reveal that there was actually a missile involved in that fertilizer plant explosion. Do you see any of that?
I saw one report of a guy saying that he thought he saw something in the top left off that guy's mobile phone footage that he had. The guy was in the car with his mobile phone and he had his child there with him.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
I don't know if there's any more footage that would confirm anything like that, but I did see that footage. I haven't actually had time to really look into it. It's interesting theory. I mean, a fertilizer plant could well go off pretty big though.
That's what I thought too.
But so again, I mean, I'm biased. Like I said, when I look at these things, I have to admit that I am. You know, if I'm going to be objective with anything, I need to be objective with myself. I have to admit that I'm biased. So, you know, it depends on how it's played. You know, if it's played to look like a conspiracy, if we find more than that, if we find more things in place, then there's a chance that this is the way it's going to be. But, you know, I'm just looking at how things are being played because I think this is all an attempt to bring about, you know, the situation they want. I mean, look at how they've locked down Boston. You know, they locked it down. They were going door to door. It was almost like a curfew. They had army on the streets. It was ridiculous what they did to Boston. It was like a manhunt, like a door-to-door manhunt. You know, it was over the top. You know,
yeah.
And they're just getting people ready for this, and they're willing to do all of this because these couple of people were killed. On that same day, there were drone strikes and there were bombings. You know, in Iraq, there were whole families killed. There was like 40, 50 people killed in bombings in Iraq on that day from the illegal US-led atrocities and invasion that's happened to the people of Iraq and the damage that's been done to these people and the brutalised reality that they're forced to live in. All of this happened on the same day. There wasn't any reports about that. There wasn't lockdown of Iraq. There wasn't any of this terrible stuff, you know, the whole terrible threat against America. Oh my God, there was a bombing that killed 3 people, and it's terrible that the people died. It's terrible that an 8-year-old boy died. But we didn't see any of the other stuff that's happening in Pakistan, in stuff that's happening in Iraq. You know, we didn't hear about any of this. And when you see all of the stuff that was in place, you know, you got the video footage of the guys, which is obviously still footage that's been spliced together. It's just still frames. You know, it's not actual video footage. You know, it's not smooth flowing. I mean, you can create that sort of footage from still frames. So why didn't we see actual video footage? Yeah, it's probably put there just so that people will question. You know, so this community gives them a little bit more bait. You know, because why would you do that? What's the point? That's the point. Okay, you got good down-home white boys there on the screen. There are guys with baseball caps on backwards and just backpacks, long hair, just good down-home American guys, you know. You got a multicultural society. America's a multicultural place. You got people all around, you know, but they're all Americans. You speak to a Greek guy or a Spanish guy or any guy who lives in America who's got a green card, he goes, hey, I'm an American. You know, so these are just down-home boys. Doesn't matter where they come from. So now you've got your white, homegrown terrorists who are truthers. And this is a natural progression from the Sandy Hook event. And everything that I said when I was talking about Sandy Hook, this is exactly what I said. This is what you're going to see. Here it is. There. So I look at that and I go, well, it's a false flag. It has to be. You know, what else would have happened like this? What's the point of bombing a marathon? What was there, a government official there you wanted to kill? What statement were you trying to make by killing this kid and killing these runners? What are you trying to say here, that sports is evil or something? I mean, what's your point? You know, the point is that it was a publicised event. It was on Patriot Day. It was, you know, there were bomb-sniffing dogs and there was stuff everywhere to make it look like a conspiracy, so that anybody who's got an eye would see that this is what it was. They managed to do it with minimal damage. They just used these little bombs. I mean, only 3 people died. Other people were injured, probably seriously, but still, it's not like it was 9/11. It's not like it was, some major event. It wasn't like it was a bomb that they let off in Iraq, which was probably someone that they programmed to do that as well. There's so much theatre going on with all of this, and you've really got to look at how it was played and the amount of attention that it got. How many people died in the fertiliser blast? 100 people injured or something? Houses knocked down, 15 people blown to bits, never found them. This didn't get much coverage, and yet these little 3 people being killed with these pressure cookers at a running event, you know what I mean? It gets all the coverage, it gets the whole fear of terrorism, it gets the city locked down, you know what I mean? It's disproportionate. So
exactly.
This lends me to saying, well, this is a staged event. It's a media event. It's a media event because look how the media handled it. There's people dying all over the place here, a lot more serious circumstances than this. Why aren't we hearing about it? Oh, it's because it was a bomb. Oh, it was a bomb in America. Oh, no. What you mean what America does everywhere else happened there. And it might, it's being played. That's the way it's worked, It's theatre.
Yeah, I encourage the listeners to look at Gerald Celenti's latest offering on the Boston bombings. I think he's done a masterpiece there in pulling that apart. Hey, we've got a caller, Max. How about we go to the caller?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, and it's Jerome. Hello, Jerome.
Hello.
You there? Hey, Jerome.
Hey, how you doing, Santos? I guess this is like a bar. I'm going to be like a regular. You expect me every time you come on, I'll be here in the chat line.
You're welcome, brother.
To be honest, I was just listening, but I guess you had my 5 cents in. About it's a strategy of tension. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with in Italy, the Piazza Fontana bombing. It was a strategy of tension to basically get people to surrender their weapons and everything. But I'm curious, like how far into the future do you see these stage events happening? Either way you can answer this. These stage events happening until they finally forfeit. They get the American people to forfeit their weapons and carry on the next agenda.
Look, to be honest, I don't think that they'll ever get the American people to willingly forfeit their weapons. It's just not going to happen. I don't think the American people will do that. They tried that. They with Sandy Hook as well. You got to see they're making these things so obvious with these events that they're kind of pushing for conflict. They're waiting for the militias to stand up against the government in a military fashion. They're waiting for someone to try to conduct some sort of a people's coup or something. They want either civil war, and if they can't push the people to civil war, because really that's the only way they're going to get the weapons, then they will push the people towards martial law by staging things such as the Boston bombing. Because what they've done with Boston, in the wake of that bombing, they let off these 2 little pressure cookers, which only killed 3 people. And on the scale of things, that's not a lot. As I said, it's terrible that anybody died or anybody was hurt. But on the scale of things, it was a small pressure cooker, homemade event. Homemade, down-home guys with stuff you can get from the kitchen made these bombs. So it was done this way, and the media played it. The media hyped it up so much. And the result of that was that all of Boston got put on lockdown, and the people accepted it. They virtually had martial law imposed over a whole city because of a couple of pressure cookers, and the people accepted it. So this is the way they'll do it. All they have to do is stage a few more of these events and say, oh, look, this is going to keep happening. Obviously, we've got terrorist cells in our country, and we think that these terrorist cells are these truthers, because if you look at everything they say, oh, look, it's all anti-American. They blame the Americans. They blame the Jews. They blame the Vatican. It's all anti-Christian. It's all anti-American. These people are anti-society. You can see how they're going to play it. And that's what they will use if they don't get the civil war that they're pushing for by making all of these things so damn obvious when they do them now. That's my take on it anyway. That's the 2 possibilities that we've got,
Yeah, going on the internet there, reading my hotmail, I see the little MSN victim says he wants Boston back. I'm like, did he really say that, or But I understand where the ship is heading. I guess for Santo, from an astrological perspective, was there anything that happened on the supposed bombing?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was around the famous sacrifice day, the day of sacrifice of fire. We've had Waco, we had the BP oil spill, we had Oklahoma. There's so many things. The Civil War, everything around the end of Aries. And this particular Aries was very, very fiery. I did do a show a couple of months back where I said, watch out for Aries. Aries represents sharp objects, weapons, shooting, martial action, fiery, warlike things, and watch out for it. And it all came about on cue. But my feeling, to answer your question, Jerome, despite these horrible things happening, what does really happen behind the scenes is that people are talking about it, and more people are awakening as a result. So, yeah, they can go ahead and do all these false flag events and benefit from them. We do see that in the end, ultimately, it's the banksters who benefit from it, ultimately, those types, and the people who have got a lot of money invested in the system. But what's happening is it's actually turning out to their detriment, because people are awakening and talking about it. I mean, here's me on this show talking about this, whereas 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had a clue. So, rejoice that that's happening. Good will come from all evil acts. It always does.
Well, the thing is, as well...
Hopefully we'll have the Vatican step down also a couple of decades, maybe. Hope step down, I mean.
Yeah.
The thing is as well, if I can just interject, the thing is as well is that, learning how to combat these things. How can we combat this whole system? And it's got to come back to what I was saying before about respect and unity and community. Because the power of community can change everything. So you've got to start respecting yourself and respecting those around you. Put away all the petty stuff, because we've got bigger issues to deal with. And it's really imperative that we deal with them. We can only deal with these issues through respecting each other and having strong community. And once we've got that, all these issues will simply disappear by default, because we'll have the strength of numbers to simply stand up and say no. And it can be done non-violently as well. That's the beauty of it. And when I say forgive people and forgive all, I mean, a lot of the psychopaths that do all these things, they won't allow you to forgive them. So that's not an issue. Don't worry about that. Just forgive the people around you and your community.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's go to the next break. You good for that, Jerome? I'll put you back on mute. Is that okay?
Sure, thank you, Santa.
Thanks, brother. Back in a few short moments, folks. Hang in there, thank you. With special guest Max Egan today, and it's the final segment. So, Max, I just want to thank you, and so that you can be free to go at the end of this segment, and I'll have David Whitehead at the after the break. And so I just want to thank you for joining me and for sharing with the listeners your insights and perspectives. You've been on this case for many years now, and so we love to hear from you, brother. Thank you very much.
Oh, pleasure to come on, Santos. Always a pleasure. I just hope that it helps, offering a perspective. I mean, I think we've got some serious issues, but I think we've also got some really simple solutions to them. So that's what I try to present.
Yeah, well, I like the solution that you offered of starting with forgiving yourself. Now, I don't know how complete I have perfected that process, but I know I have forgiven myself for, the ignorance, the dangerous behaviour that I've been involved in. I say dangerous when, I I considered myself to be a danger to humanity when I was a Jehovah's Witness, because I was very zealous and I would knock on many doors, trying to convert people to Jehovah and to the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, who I now know are pedophiles. So that was very dangerous for me, and I need to complete the process of forgiving myself for a start, and then only then can you fully, completely forgive everyone else, because really we are everyone else. God, the creator light, we are children of light, is in everyone.
Well, that's true, brother. And you've got to really forgive yourself. But when you do, you have a real moment of realization, because the real way to forgive yourself is to understand the playing field that you've got. Understand the yardsticks that you were given to measure yourself up to. Understand that you were living in what was essentially a social construct, a fictional social construct, a boxed view of reality. And when you look at things, I go through this on so many shows where I talk about the measurement problem. I talk about it so much and mention it so much because it's important. It's an important piece of science. All you people out there, you respect science. Okay, well, here's some science that says that when you observe an experiment, it behaves differently. And the measurement problem, how you can't measure an atom until you actually go to measure it, because the electrons are infinite. They exist everywhere at once. It isn't until you go to measure it that it actually coalesces to form the atom. So therefore, the act of observation creates the atom, and everything is made of atoms. All matter is made of atoms, and yet we create this stuff by observing it. So, when you are living in a social construct and an economic construct and a religious construct and a scientific construct, a mathematical, geometric construct that tells you that reality has to fit within these certain parameters, and that is all that's possible, then this is what you get. But really the only thing that is impossible is that which you believe is impossible. So, we are capable of making this reality anything we want. But we're given all these fictional yardsticks and ways to measure ourselves up. We're put into a system which is essentially designed to disconnect us, to make us all competitive, to make it so that we've all got stuff with each other, so that we're all divided, when really it's a construct. It's been done to do exactly what it's done. So you're not judging people or yourself by an even playing field. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you did, Santos. It matters what you do. Put that away. There was one moment in ceremony where I was in ceremony. I spoke to the mother, the Earth Mother, the Mother Ayahuasca, the female goddess that we all meet, that everybody meets if they do ceremony. And I said to her, I'm really sorry about all that stuff I did. And she said, yes, so am I. Are we done? Can we go forward now? And she doesn't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you did. Now you know. That's great that you know, because now you know never to do it again. It's all good. It doesn't matter. It's just a construct. The whole thing's a construct. But we can change it once we forgive ourselves, and when we can truly see that what it was our belief of reality that made us everything that we were. That always does make you everything that you are. It's your belief of reality, your belief of what your relationship to reality is. But when you can really see how much has been taken from us, it's easy to forgive yourself and to forgive everybody of everything, because no one was given an even playing field. And the best you can do is lead by example and be the light that you are, and shine that light forth. Be that, and be all that you can be in the world, and improve reality by your presence in it. Because we're custodians of this place. Each generation are the custodians of this planet. And we need to turn things around. We really do. It's got to come from respect. And as soon as we do that, when you truly do that and truly find yourself and truly forgive yourself, you don't even have to try to forgive everybody else. It just all happens by default. And if it happened to everybody all at once, the world would change in 3 seconds. There'll be the psychopaths, like I said, that won't allow you to forgive them, and that's okay. They're psychopaths. They'll just keep going and act in psychopathic ways. But because we've all forgiven each other and we all respect each other, well, I guess we'll just have to take these guys and, I don't know, put them on Christmas Island or something. They can all live there together, like they made the refugees do. But something. We get them out of society. We don't need you. You're a psychopath. Go away. See, back in the old days, the shaman used to take care of the psychopaths, so they were never allowed to get into a situation where they were in control. Through the loss of our shamanistic culture, we lost the ability to differentiate these psychopaths, and so these psychopaths, because they like control, they always maneuver themselves into control, and so now we have a completely psychopathic society, completely due to the loss of shamanistic traditions, which is another result of religion. the Crown Corporation, the Jesuit system, the whole corporate entity that is Rome that went out and devastated all. That was its main priority: devastate all of these shamanistic traditions, because that's where your connection to everything lies. And that's also how to recognise psychopathy. We don't want that. So we've created a psychopathic system which rewards psychopathic and sociopathic behaviour. So this is what you get. So you can't judge people. You can't, because you look at the parameters that they've been given to grow up in, and it's a big step backwards, and it's a big realisation to really see this and see it about yourself and to see what you've actually been swimming in. But when you really see it, you can't help but forgive yourself and everybody else.
Yeah, here. Perfect. Well said, and so true. We've been handicapped by the system that we glorify, and you hear people talking and praising the scientific community and all their achievements, and politicians who are doing good for humanity, and charities that are going around vaccinating children and stuff like that. I mean, it's all it's all a construct, and we've been educated to think that these things are great and superior to any other time in history, and yet it's totally the opposite. So we've got to, first of all, overcome that and understand that has been happened to us, that has been perpetrated on us, and
it's a system of control. It's solely about control, all of that stuff. It's a result of the predator mind, and even people's belief that they need to judge others, it's a result of the predator mind. As I said earlier, one of the researchers I respect most out of a lot of the people that I've seen out there is the work of John Lash. And I really recommend that people have a listen to what he's said on some of his interviews. And I actually got to try to contact him to see if I can get him on the show. But I think that the more people understand about the predator mind and what they're really swimming in, what this social construct really is, and what it's done to human consciousness, it becomes easy to forgive everybody, and you can't really judge them at all. And I recommend people do ceremony as well, not because it's a nice experience, because often it isn't, but it opens you up to the fact that there are higher realms, there are higher levels of consciousness that you can reach, and we need to pay attention. Even if you don't do ceremony, you can still, if you look, you can see the system for what it is. You can see how much humankind has been moved from their path. And I think it's really important that we get back on our path. It's really important that we keep the message alive. But it's also really important when we look at all these people and that we don't judge them harshly. I mean, you can't really be calling people morons, because they've been programmed to do what they're doing. And they're in a bubble. They can't help it. They were put there. They don't know. They have no idea what reality is, because they were given these little boxed parameters, and that became their reality. And suddenly within those parameters they found a little bubble where it works for them. They can walk that path and not think about anything else, and it all works. Just leave me alone. My reality works if I do this. I've found a way to make it work. So don't bring this other stuff to me. So you can't judge them. You can't. You've got to lead by example and shine your light. Understand who and what you really are and shine that light. That's how you change things. You lead by example in all that you do, regardless of what you did. Forgive yourself, forgive them. It doesn't matter. It's all petty. There's far, far bigger things at stake.
Yeah, and you're right there. You can actually learn these things from entheogenic experiences. I hope I can get a chance to do this when I go to Ecuador. Do you know whether Ecuador is known for ayahuasca?
I'm not sure, mate. Like I say, look, a lot of Central American and South American regions are, but you're not far from Peru. And I know a few people in the Peru area that would be able to look after you.
Not that I need to. I mean, I've got enough stuff here. I've got a beautiful Salvia divinorum plant just outside of my doorstep. Really, it's growing monstrously, and I'll tell you what, the DMT in that is quite wonderful. I recommend Salvia divinorum to anyone who's.
It's not also about the DMT though. I mean, with the ayahuasca ceremony, a lot of it is about the ayahuasca. You can actually do it without the DMT. The DMT just helps. Something that I'd like to see that I'm kind of concerned about with the way ayahuasca ceremonies have become so prominent and so fashionable, if you will, is that there are vast amounts of the Amazon still being torn down. And there are now, because of ayahuasca tourism, there are vast amounts of vine being pulled out of the jungle that is left. And I'm just wondering who's planting it. Because it's very, very soon, at the current rate, it will become a rarity because of the degradation of the forest. And people's rush to get this out to everybody that they can and using it as a means of making money may be the downfall of the tradition, maybe the downfall of shamanism altogether. Because it needs to be done in a very careful manner. And we need to make sure that we don't run out of this plant, because the last place it exists is the Amazon, really. There's separate little pockets maybe around the place, but people need to thinking about replanting it and getting the word out to do that on all of the places that you can go for ceremony. I think they should be planting.
Yeah, true too, very true, and. Certainly, if one is not prepared to have an entheogenic experience, I would recommend to spend time with yourself. The best way to get to know who you are, which is imperative really for going forward, is to spend time with yourself.
Do that and spend time in the forest, spend time in the jungle. I mean, one of the biggest things I learned from an entheogenic experience was that I don't need it. Like even the spirit of the plant, Mother Ayahuasca, because that's the thing in the ayahuasca experience is the spirit of that carpa vine itself. It has a particular female spirit which can connect you to all sorts of higher stuff and literally show you the way through the DMT experience. I mean, DMT itself is like being shot out of a cannon. You don't know what you're going to manifest. You'll manifest anything your imagination wants to manifest, depending on the mood you're in, the fear state you're in, or anything. And all this stuff's happening. You don't know how to decode it. But with the ayahuasca experience, you've actually got the spirit of this plant guiding you through. And it's a feminine spirit that everybody experiences. Every single person that has the ayahuasca experience meets Mother Ayahuasca eventually. They'll meet this feminine spirit, which guides them through. So it's a rather unique experience, and if you go out in nature, you can feel her there all the time. That's what she will tell you in the experience, is that the most important thing you can get out of this is to remember that you don't have to do this. You don't have to drink to come and know me. I'm here all the time. All you have to do is be aware of me and listen. And the reason you've got a lot of shaman going out around the world and holding ceremonies in secret with people to bring this information to people is because the shamanistic cultures that are left, the traditional cultures, believe that the reason our society is the way it is and the reason this predator mind has been able to take us over is because we've lost our connection to spirit, our connection to the earth spirit.
Power
and they
on.
can see that if we don't get our connection to spirit back, we're going to take the whole world down with us. We're going to take all these traditions with us. We're going to take all life with us into the abyss. And so they're going out now using the ayahuasca as a means of giving people a crash course.
Bluetooth connected.
We've lost our connection to that.
Beautiful. Well said. And Max, we've come to the end. And I wish to thank you very much. And we'll be talking soon, brother. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to come on, Santos. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
Okay,
Thanks, listeners. Back after a few short minutes after the commercial break with David Whitehead, who will be joining you for the month of May.
Hello, this is Lisa Harrison, and today is Monday, the 16th of July, 2012. And today I'm joined by fellow Aussies Max Egan and Santos Bonacci. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for asking us on, Lisa.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for joining me. I've been looking forward to an Aussie chat, essentially. I feel that probably as a result of our geography, we have quite a unique perspective on the world. It's easy for us to feel like we're on the outside looking in a bit, I think. And wanted to talk to the two of you in particular because I know that you're both out there putting out a lot of information. And like me, your audience is predominantly American. So I wanted to know what you guys both thought about where Australia stands in terms of this awakening. You know, how awake are we compared to the rest of the world? Because you both get an opportunity to interact with and correspond with people from all over the world. And if we are lagging, what would it take? Because I think for each country, it takes something different. You know, it takes something that really, confronts the culture of a country to get them to wake up. I mean, for example, with Iceland, that's what seems to have brought that country together and woken them up en masse was the issue of dealing with this so-called global financial crisis and bailing out the bankers. That seems to be what stimulated a mass awakening and a collective hand-holding almost across that country. And it feels from here like we're looking at an awake nation now. And so before I sort of drag this out too long, what's your perspective on where we sit in terms of how awake we are compared to the rest of the world? And is there a particular thing that you think would really kick off a knee-jerk reaction in Australia? Whoever wants to go first.
Look, I think that we are lagging in the wakefulness. I really do. I mean, but it depends on where you are as well. There are certain pockets of the population in Australia that are awake. There's a lot of awake people around here where I live in the Northern Rivers, but again, most of them are only really half awake. You know, they're kind of aware that something's up, but they either don't quite know what it is or they don't really want to face it. And as far as the cities go and things, I mean, they're very, very asleep in the cities. I mean, I often call Australia apathralia because we have a very apathetic population, and you can't blame them for being that way. They're just trained to be that way. You know, it's a lucky country, no worries, everything's okay, just lay back, watch the football, have a beer, have a barbecue.
We're too comfortable.
Yeah, we're very comfortable, you know. We don't have overpopulation here. We've got 22 million people in Australia, the same as Greater New York. And we've got a country the size of the United States, you know, so we don't have a lot of people here. We don't have a lot of overpopulation here. As far as the catalyst that it might take to wake people up, I've been hoping that it'll be coal seam gas because Australia is a desert nation. The most valuable resource in this country is water. And here we have the government that is destroying the water table in order to support the economy. And everyone's struggling, so the economy isn't doing very well. And people have to really step back from the whole thing anyway and realise that the economy is actually fiction. We just made it up. Mm-hmm. It's just numbers on a screen. It doesn't really mean anything. You know, what's real is the people and the nation. And I really think that people have forgotten who and what they are. And I've been talking a lot about trust, and Santos knows about trust and trust law, and the relationship that actually exists between our government, which is a trust agreement. You know, and I think that's the solution. Realising that if they're coming and damaging the water table, if they're bringing gas companies onto your land and the water's becoming polluted and all of this stuff's going on around us, the only way it's happening is through breach of trust by the government because they're public trustees that hold the nation for us. And that's the perspective that we need to look at it from. Julia Gillard, a couple of months ago, or 6 weeks ago, said on TV, when she was talking to the gas companies, that they need to understand they don't own the resources and that we, the government, hold the resources and the nation in trust for the sovereign people. She actually said this.
Do you think she meant it?
Well, the fact is that she said it. So she's telling you that there's the solution, folks. She's saying, look, I'm a lawyer. I mean, Julia Gillard's a lawyer. How should she even be a politician? How that's legal, I don't know, but she's a lawyer. So she's caught in that system. She's already sold her soul to the devil. Mm-hmm. She's made consensual contractual obligations to the bar. She's in there. And she's telling us the only way you can deal with this problem is if you people realise who and what you are and realise that we, the government, are simply public trustees.
It also sounds like a position of weakness too, from her point of view. It's like abdicating any responsibility for that the gas companies are in a more powerful position than she is.
Well, of course she's advocating responsibility because the responsibility lies with the people. It's just that the people don't know it. You know, the whole system's convoluted and people haven't been educated into who and what they are. And I'm hoping that coal seam gas will jar people enough to realise that this is important because this is the water. This is a spring-fed nation. All we've got is the Great Artesian Basin. If that gets polluted, we've got no water in this nation. And that's a very, very important issue. And if they're doing anything that might even suggest that it's endangering the water table, there needs to be a complete halt of this activity. And we need to examine what's really going on here and examine what our relationship is with these people. Because the government, they're just people. They're just people in expensive suits. They're no better than anybody else, and they're actually our employees, and more than that, they're actually public trustees. And this has been admitted by the Prime Minister herself.
But we've been programmed to not see them that way, to see them as authority figures.
Well, exactly, and we've been taught that if we want to get change from these people, we need to go down legal avenues. We need to work within the parameters that they provided for us to work within and operate within the legal system. But before we even approach the legal system, let's look at what our relationship with government is. And that is one of grantor, trustee and beneficiary. That's it. It's a trust agreement. It's a fiduciary trust. That's what your relationship with government is. And these people are in breach of trust. If there's any suggestion that the water table is being damaged, that's a breach of trust. If there's people in this country struggling under heavy taxes and struggling under a corrupt financial system, that's a breach of trust. We don't employ these people to do this. But they've taken control of the education system, so they've turned everything on its head, so that people believe the government are their rulers and they believe that they have to operate within the legal parameters that are constructed by these people to protect themselves. And okay, we need some sort of a legal system. Fine, I can deal with that. But let's first deal with this trust agreement that exists between ourselves and government, because I believe that's where the solution lies. And I think that the catalyst that could bring it all together is coal seam gas, if people can become aware of the importance of this topic.
Well said. Santos.
Yep, yeah, well said. I really don't need to add much more to that other than the fact that education, or rather enlightenment, and knowing who you are, etc., will reverse that sick situation today where we can take over and be the rulers of our own lives in freedom, and they can be the good little trustees that they're supposed to be, and we can pay them to administer the affairs properly and not be in breach of trust and just obey every little word that comes out of our mouths. But you have to be honourable, and responsible, and that's where we've defaulted. So they've taken advantage of that, we've been sleeping, really. We've got to grow up and show that we are responsible and conscious and aware, and then they don't have to baby us. I'm sure they're sick of babying us too, It takes a lot of time. Most of their life, these politicians, they're just running around doing all that political crap that they do. I feel sorry for them, They probably want a better life too.
I just spent a few days in Canberra, and I spent about 6.5 hours walking around the streets of Canberra by myself and popping into one cafe after another, having a coffee and listening to the conversations going on around me. It's a very strange place. It's a very strange place. And listening to just 9 out of 10 people were public servants, and the attitudes of these people. Talk about sleep, but it's almost a pissing contest about whose public servant job is more important than the other person's public servant job. And I spent most of the afternoon just wanting to scream at people, but the energy of that place is very, very strange. I've never been anywhere quite like it. But in terms of what might wake people up, Santos, I know you deal a lot with people who are facing court and teaching them how to deal with things in court as well. And it's either because the banks are foreclosing on them, or they've got trumped up charges, driving offences, these kinds of things that take people through the court system. And in the process of facing the court system, if they go down the sort of sovereign road, they start to understand what the court system is really all about, the corruption that's in place. That is waking people up somewhat exponentially, really, because more and more people are being confronted with it. More and more people are having their houses foreclosed on. So this is a slower process of waking people up. I mean, I know there are thousands of people right now in this country who are dealing with their homes being foreclosed on, and they're dealing with it in going down the straw man or sovereign or whatever way you want to call it movement down that road in order to defend it, who 12 months ago knew nothing about any of this, or even 6 months ago knew nothing about it. So we are having people wake up because they're no longer comfortable, because the system is actually closing in on them and tightening its rein. And that's the only thing that seems to kick Aussies out of this apathy, is when it comes to them and comes knocking on their door. But this is a slow process. You know, for each person who's facing foreclosure and goes down this road and learns, they may wake up half a dozen of their family and friends. But it's not going to be enough to catalyse the nation as a whole. Do you see the coal seam gas, or is there something else you see that could do it?
Yeah, that's a good one, that one, because that's pretty obvious. That's destructive. It's a real hack job. That is real. That's just a bunch of companies trashing the planet, and people can see that. You know, you don't need to be so enlightened. But if we keep as you said, in the last 12 months, people are much more switched on to how the courts are operating, etc. If we turn that Promethean fire on, which we all have, the knowledge of who we are, and be responsible as a human being. If we keep that on, we'll keep the wolves at bay. The wolves are the lawyers and the companies and the parasites that take advantage when there's no fire. You know, if you're out in the jungle and you haven't got a big fire, you know, eventually some animals will come around because they'll smell some food, you know. But if you've got a big fire, they won't come around, you know. So if we keep the fire, the Promethean fire burning, which we were supposed to from
water anywhere near that computer
ages ago.
You shouldn't even bring it in there where she can grab it and fucking tip it on there, bud.
They're just ravenous wolves.
Bring it back in here, please.
The corporations, because there's money to be made, and everybody wants their little bit, you know. Once we do that and reactivate that fire and know who we are, it's very hard for these people to actually get away with crimes, because then they have to do lawyers have to do a lot more work. For instance, I'll give you an example of something that I'm going to be interviewing a guy called Boris on my last American Freedom Radio interview this weekend. Boris is one of these guys who talks a lot to another guy called Batman, and there's a community of these truthers, sovereigns, and they operate under what they call peaceful inhabitant. You know, so if you go to court, you know, you rock up as peaceful inhabitant. Hey, I'm your friend. You know, I'm here. I'm a friend of the court. And then, you know, there's been a mistake. Someone's using my name as personal identification. Whoops! You're not supposed to do that. That makes it really difficult for a prosecutor to say, "Oh yeah, that's me. I'm the one who's." I'm the one who's used your all caps name as personal identification, and all of your birth certificate and all your documents, they are non-identifiable documents. So what are they doing turning up in court, trying to pin your flesh and blood onto that corporate name? That's fraud. So it's going to be very hard for them to get past that hurdle. And that's what Boris is talking about. He's going to be talking about that. And all the successes they're having in court, they're just winning everything just by being a peaceful inhabitant, rocking up and saying, "Whoops, there's a mistake."
This in Australia? Sorry?
Yeah, in Australia it's being used too, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had so many different movements, different procedures, different technology to deal with courts, and it's been pretty slap hazard as to whether or not it works. And sometimes one particular technology might work the first half a dozen times and then ceases to work. That seems to be a bit of a trap as well. There's just so many ways of approaching the whole court structure. It's just, and people can spend 20 years, and have done, studying this stuff.
True. There are things I've tried in court that have failed. There's things that I've tried that have worked. Depends on it really depends on the case and how simple it is or how complex it is. But yes, that's true. There's many different approaches. Some work, some don't. And then when they do give you a little bit of a helping hand, because some judges are, they're really nice guys, and they do help you if they see that you're being honourable and you're trying and you're doing your best. They do help, but then the system closes down on that, and then they find a way to block that procedure or access. And then it's difficult for the next guys that come through, because it's the system, you see. The banksters are afraid that people will work out their system and be sovereign, stop using their money, so then their free ride ends. And it's going to end. So it's ending. Their ride is ending. The gravy train, it's finished. And Iceland, as you mentioned, is one, astounding example of this. These people are free, and from day to day, they are getting more and more rich. They are more and more sovereign. There's about 4 or 5% unemployment, and that's diminishing by the day. They are a real happy little country. There's no banks, no interference, and they are a model to the rest of the Euro and the rest of the free world, and that's the way they're heading, Lisa. You look at there's the BRIC nations now: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. These nations have formed a sort of a block against the cabals now, and they're just sick of the war and the ravages and the crimes that they're getting up to. Most of South American countries, like Morales in Bolivia and Chavez in Venezuela, they might not be the sweetest, nicest guys in the world, but they sure are against the multinationals and the gringos, as they call them, that are destroying the planet. And so you've got all of South America now have sort of made a political statement, and they're advancing towards, closing in on this cabal of Swiss bankers and Vatican and Windsor Rothschild.
Do you think we have a chance of waking up a nation like Australia without the assistance of the mainstream media? Can we bypass it? I mean, for those who are, awake is such a strange term, but I guess we'll go with it. But for those who are awake, they either don't watch, read, or listen to mainstream media anyway. It's become redundant. But for the majority of the population, it's still where they believe the news is. It's still where they believe the truth about the state of the world is. So can we wake it up without the assistance of mainstream media?
It will be tricky, but there is a way to sort of co-opt their media as well and make it go towards our own destination. You see, ultimately all of these problems come because of the disempowerment of the people. And this is where coal seam gas comes into it. I mean, the court system, approaching it through the court system is a great idea, but even, like you say, it's a hit and miss methodology, because it's a learning process for all of us. I mean, people have only recently become aware of the fictional nature of the legal system. People have only become aware that there's a difference between legal and lawful, Yeah. So, something that's legal may be not lawful at all, but it doesn't matter because we're taught to operate within the legal parameters. And people are learning this, and they're going into courts and they're attempting to attack the system or fight the system or go in and tell the judge he's got no jurisdiction, and all these approaches, which are, can inherently lead you into trouble. But even as you stumble through the process, once you get into that building and you're in all of these sacred geometric things and these resonances and these energy fields and all these sigils and things set up, it disempowers you by even being in there. And you get into a court and you get that feeling of, oh my God, I'm in court. You know, there's an instant change of energy that happens in these buildings. So,
and they're very deliberately designed that way.
Well, absolutely. So what you've got to do is find a way of empowering the people. And this is where I believe coal seam gas comes into it, because if you can empower the people into understanding that the relationship between themselves and government is a trust agreement, and give them the ability to stand up against things like coal seam gas, that makes it to the mainstream media. Now, they can't help but report this stuff, you know. And if you start building these strong communities and people start finding out who and what they are and realise the power that they have, because that's what's been taken from us. We've had the whole human experience reduced to commerce. We've had all of our power taken from us. You know, we're given all of these goals that are completely unachievable. You know, like the television tells you you've got to do this and wear this and be like this and eat this and do all this sort of stuff in order to be this type of person. And it's something that you can never achieve because it's a fictional reality that they've created. So you spend your life struggling for this stuff and you end up dissatisfied and dejected and you never made it to where you thought you had to. So people are kept in this state for a reason. So they never really have time to even try to be self-empowered because they're too busy trying to be what the television tells them they have to be, you know. So we have to find a way of shifting this paradigm within people. So we need to find a way of empowering people on the ground in something that they can understand. And water, we need water. So that's why I can see an opportunity in coal seam gas mining. But all of the research is good. I mean, we need to be questioning authority on every single level. You know, questioning the authority of the councils, the authority of the government, because the government only has the power that we grant them. They're trustees. We're the beneficiaries of the power that we grant them. And yet they will do harm to us if we breach one of their statutes, when there's no injured party for the breach of that statute. And so when they harm us, they put us in jail. Well, now there's an injured party. So they're the ones who've broken the law. How do they get the power to imprison me from the power that I give them? When I've done nothing but stand for the right of this earth, stand up for the water table or question authority where that questioning was due, and they believe that they can now hurt me for that, and yet they get that power from me because we are the nation. So you've got to get people to think this way. You've got to try to shift that paradigm within people. It's got to come down to self-empowerment, personal, individual self-empowerment. It has to start on the individual level. That's what I believe. And so every opportunity we've got to do it, I think we should take. And I think because coal seam gas is so prevalent in the media at the moment and it's something they can understand, and it could be used to co-opt the media and get people empowered enough that they can stand in court and stand up against the legal system in their flesh, maybe it's an opportunity that's been brought here for a reason, you know. All of these negative things, there's got to be positive results. I mean, this is how people wake up. This is why people are waking up, is because it's getting so negative. And this, I think we've got a great opportunity in this country because we've got less people in this entire country than they have in one city in the United States. So we can wake up a whole country, and that can send a shockwave around the world. The stuff that's come out about the Chappelle Corby case as well.
I was just going to ask you about Chappelle, yes.
Well, there's government corruption right there for you. If you want to know how corrupt these people actually are, go to expendable.tv and have a look at the movie Expendable and see what they did to Chappelle Corby. See how much the media and the government and the federal police and all these people are working in collusion to manufacture news and cover up their tracks. There's your corruption. And look what they're doing to the water table. They're willing to pollute the water table in order to support an economy.
But do you think that the documentary Expendable reached people that would normally be, you know, the MSN?
Well, I think it did, because Chappelle Corby is a name that every Australian knows, and a lot of people watch that. And suddenly we saw all this stuff in the news about Chappelle Corby, clemency, and all this sort of stuff that they're trying to say she's okay now. And all of this is damage control from that film.
They haven't actually released it yet, though, have they?
No, of course they haven't released her. She's had 5 years off a sentence. All of the stuff that they've had there, oh, now I can have a baby, and all this stuff that was in New Idea and all these articles on her, it's all rubbish. She's still in jail. She's in jail till at least 2017, and she probably won't last that long, you know. She's in a pretty bad way, so we've got to keep on that.
It did seem like a direct result of the Expendable. It was let's stop people from asking too many questions or looking too deeply.
Of course. So we're going to do something else on that soon. I'm actually working on a new one that we're going to put out, which will only be very short as well, but I want to get that out soon. But I've got so much on at the moment, it's been really difficult to find time to get anything done. But, I think we can do this. I think we can get through it. And the more negative it gets, the more positive it gets. That's the way it is. I'll tell you an interesting thing too, as far as the consciousness shift. There's a lot of prophecies and legends, and you find that there's talk of this in American Indian traditions and in Mayan traditions, that the shift in consciousness that is supposed to happen starts on the east coast of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I was going to ask you about that too.
Well,
You're jumping ahead of me. That's good.
Oh, I must be reading your mind, but it follows the song lines. See, the song lines, the first song was sung here, and it follows the song lines across the planet. And so we have an opportunity to do that. And I think Australians, once they do wake up, they will see what's going on and they will act. We're a pretty staunch nation. We've been lulled into apathy, but you can't blame the people for being the way they are and thinking the way they are, because they've been trained to be that way. And but once Australians get roused, they're pretty staunch people. And I think that the destruction of the water table is something that could really, really do it. So it's an opportunity, and I think we need to take it. But we've got to approach it in the right way. We don't want violence. We don't want anything like that. We just need people to reclaim their power. Go on that road of self-discovery, stand in their flesh, realise that these people are simply public trustees, and we have a real opportunity for change here. And not only that, we have the ability to make the change by simply looking at things from the correct perspective.
Just diverging back onto the prophecies and what's coming out now about the Aboriginal dreaming. And you and I both know a gentleman called Stephen Strong, and I've spent a bit of time with Stephen lately and have been mentioning him and his work quite a bit in every interview that I've done. And he says the same thing, and not only that this awakening of consciousness is supposed to start on the east coast of Australia, but apparently every time throughout the eons, that's where the consciousness shift starts. That every time it's a process, and it always starts in the same place.
Yeah, well, see, this is the beginning of the song lines. This is the place of the first boiler ring, right here in Byron Bay where I live, about 3 or 4 minutes walk from my house.
It's the tail, isn't it, where you are?
It's the tail of the serpent. It's the place of the first boiler ring. It was actually a presentation, a sovereignty workshop that I attended, actually spoke at in the middle of last year, and Steve was at the same workshop. And he's done some wonderful work on Aboriginal origins. These are absolutely the original people on Earth. And so this is where the first songs were sung. So this is where the energy started. And a really interesting thing, when the British came here to Australia, when Cook came here to Australia, it wasn't Captain Cook. That happened later, when he messed up all his books and forged his... Anyway, it's another story. But anyway, he arrived at a place called Agnes Waters, and he sat there on the cliff top in a place called the Doorway of Destiny, and he tracked the movements of Venus for 3 days. And Venus is actually going through that same transitionary period at the moment, I think, the same thing that Cook did when he first came here.
Well, I've heard that's why he came here, was to track the transit of Venus.
Yeah, well, they came here to track the transit of Venus, and then they went and landed in South Australia. They stopped at Sydney on the way, and then they after they'd been here a little while, they got Aboriginal children and they dressed them up in Western clothes, and they brought them and they made them sing into the song lines and walk the song lines, singing Christian hymns and things. Mm-hmm. You can talk to Mark McMurtry about this.
Yep.
They actually made the children walk the song lines, and they sang Western law into the country. So they know how it works. Yes. They know how energy works, and they know the importance of these song lines and these energy grids, all the monuments they put everywhere, all the obelisks, all the stuff they do. It's all to do with all of this energy. And this is a lot of what keeps us in this, people locked in this apathetic and unconscious state. That's a whole very esoteric way of looking at it that a lot of people might have trouble dealing with, but it's true. I mean, you can't say that all of these things are on all these points because of pure coincidence. It simply isn't possible. So it's a fascinating story, and I think that we do have the ability to make that change. I think that's why I've been called to the area. There's certain other people that have been called to the area. Ken O'Keefe is coming out to visit us soon. He's going to be coming to the area. And a lot of people have been drawn here. And I think that we have a real opportunity for change here, and it all comes from self-empowerment. See, all the research that you do, all the rabbit holes you go down, ultimately what you're looking for is yourself. What you're looking for is the power that you hold. And we're being led away from that, and everything about this system leads us away from that. Everything about this system teaches us to look for remedy externally from ourselves. Yep. But you don't. All the remedy is in yourself, knowing that you are flesh and blood. You are living flesh. It's like Santos was saying before, who's made the claim against the name? They call your name. I'm here regarding that matter. I'd like to know who's made the claim against the name. They're obviously exercising a right of ownership over the name. They're using it as personal identification. I'd like to know who they are. Oh, the state of New South Wales brought the claim against you. Well, that's not possible because the state of New South Wales is a dead entity. Somewhere there was a guy sitting in a building, sitting at a typewriter, and he wrote this form out. Bring him in here. I'd like to speak to him, please.
What you were saying earlier is touching on the fact that he's talking about the whole Messiah myth. I think it's probably one of the most dangerous and destructive things that humanity's ever created. And whatever form that Messiah takes, whether it's ETs or Jesus or the white hats or whatever, but it's so disempowering, and it alleviates you of any responsibility whatsoever for anything that you may think, feel, or do.
Well, that's the problem, see, and that's where the solution lies. The solution lies in self-responsibility, because if people aren't prepared to be responsible for themselves, be self-empowered and be responsible for themselves, well, then they get ruled. And you can't blame the government for ruling you. If you're not prepared to stand in who and what you are and take responsibility for your actions, well, perhaps you need a ruler.
Well, there are no rulers if there are no followers.
Exactly. So that's where it all lies. And I don't want to hurt these people. I don't care what they did. I don't want to point the finger at anybody. I'm not interested in jailing anybody. I want them to come home with everybody else. But I want human consciousness to be free. All people need is self-responsibility and integrity, because integrity has no need of rules. And that's the approach we need to have. You've got to know who you are. When you have that self-discovery and that acceptance of yourself for your own perfection, the whole world changes. And when you can see other people as that as well, see other people as being as valid as you, that's it. All the barriers break down, and suddenly we don't even need government anymore. And if there's a problem in the world, well, all the problems that we face, they all come from governments. If they believe we're involved in any of their contracts and birth certificates and all this stuff, well, show me proof of claim. I never agreed to any of it. But, if I do it on my own, I get in trouble. So I need the rest of the people to know this as well. And that's why I do what I do. That's why you do what you do. That's why Santos does what he does. Because the people need this information. They need to know who and what they are. Because until they know that, there's never going to be any change. No one's going to come and save you. You have to save yourself. And you're never going to be able to do that until you know what you are and who you are.
But isn't that what this 2012 phenomenon is all about? Is that rediscovery? Is that what you think it is?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for rediscovery, but people have to participate. Too many people, like you say, they're waiting for the white hats. They're waiting for mass arrests. They're waiting for the Pleiadians to come. Someone's going to save them. There's going to be a cataclysm. I don't have to do anything, I don't have to participate in my own salvation. I don't have to find me. Someone else is going to find me. I'm just going to be saved. The white horses are going to come along and take me to heaven, and I'm going to be looked after by God, even though I completely neglected the world that I live in and myself,
Santos, have you looked into the Indigenous prophecies or the work that's starting to come out now from the Indigenous?
Probably more so the American Indigenous, like your Mayans and your Hopis and stuff like that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that stuff really intrigues me. Isn't it interesting that Indigenous people are really, really concerned and are focused on the spiritual ultimate outcome of this world. And a world, the word world comes from whirling around, because everything spirals, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that this spiral has only got a certain duration. You know, this illusory world of Maya, it's got a certain duration. So have our physical bodies and whatnot. So everything sort of is born, grows, and then decays. So they were focused on that. Now, what the Western world wants to do is shift our focus from that. No, don't be distracted with, eschatology and end-time prophecies and where we're going and what the ultimate... Let's make some money. There's the stock market out there. There's trading. There's all sorts of things. You can buy properties and everything. Ownership. Own this. Own that. That's the devil. That's the evil. If we focus on the Aboriginal and Indigenous prophecies, we'll be more interested in our own dominion and the more important things that have true value, which will help us to identify or know who we are, and now connect with the oneness, with everything, rather than being, you see, education tends to compartmentalize us, you see, and we get sort of pigeonholed, and we get everything's sort of detached and separated and divided. You're a Protestant, you're a Catholic, you're white collar, blue collar, middle class, and all of that rubbish, for goodness sakes, Their wisdom helps one to see that we are all part of the one. Everything is syncretic. Everything is a oneness. And that division of that oneness is the only evil that exists.
You're reminding me of something I was thinking the other day, which is the divide and conquer. Because right now it seems like everyone's looking to try and find their place in this 2012 phenomenon. And we're doing it yet again with labels. I'm a crystal. I'm an indigo. I'm a starseed. I'm from the Pleiades. I'm from Arcturus. I'm from Sirius. And it's just...
Stop! No!
It's the New Age version of divide and conquer.
No more!
And each of these groups
claims
they have the answer,
eat the fucking
and
veggies. Stop fucking doing that.
Here with a purpose to save the planet. And pitting each of these groups against one another. I mean, I had a roundtable discussion and with some people that was very open to start with, but what we ended up going down this road of talking about elders and bringing the elders, Western elders, back into the fold, because essentially they've not been encouraged to step into the role.
Some workers in Egypt accidentally dug into an early Christian tomb. In 1945, some workers in Egypt accidentally dug into an early Christian tomb. Inside, they found a large jar containing 13 leather-bound manuscripts, which were composed of 48 separate works. Practically all of these works are Gnostic, meaning they teach salvation through mystical knowledge. And one of these manuscripts contains the Gospel of Thomas. In Gnosticism, people are believed to be souls in material bodies. Through knowledge can they ascend. And according to this religion, Jesus is the Redeemer who came to communicate that knowledge and liberate man. He communicated this knowledge to selected disciples. In almost all spiritual paths or traditions that are followed, eventually that which is discovered leads to this same ascension. And if these teachings had been placed in the modern Bible, the message may possibly have been clearer and more focused on the power that is held within each person. The Gospel according to Thomas doesn't tell a story. It's a compilation of approximately 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. The opening words of the document read, "These are the secret words which Jesus, the living one, spoke, and Didymus Judas Thomas wrote down. And he said, Whosoever finds the interpretation of these sayings shall never taste death. Let not him who seeks desist until he finds. When he finds, he will be troubled. When he is troubled, he will marvel, and he will reign over the universe." The sayings themselves are not the secret. The secret lies in their interpretation. When you find the true answers, it will trouble you because it goes against most of what you've been taught. And when the truth of it sets in, it will marvel you. And then you will know your power, that you have supreme reign over your life and everything in it, that you truly can experience heaven on earth. The Gospel of Thomas has been eliminated from the Bible, and there are many explanations as to the reasoning. Some religious leaders express that if you read it and compare it to what you see in the New Testament, it's a very different kind of book, presenting a quite different Jesus. They claim that these particular teachings about Jesus mesh with certain philosophical principles that only grew in popularity, but that they aren't necessary to the work of the Bible.
How many have heard of the lost Gospel of Thomas? The lost Gospel of Thomas. Some of you have heard of that text. Very, very powerful text. The lost Gospel of Thomas is powerful because it is believed to be the actual words of Jesus as he was teaching those around him how to use the power of human emotion in his life. And if the indigenous people know it, and if the ancient people know it, why don't we know it? What happened to our knowledge? Well, this is a very good question. And the answer is this. In our Western tradition, and when I say Western, I'm assuming that we are of the Judeo-Christian tradition, is what I'm talking about here. There was a time when this field and the language of emotion was part of our tradition. It was in our texts. Until the 4th century, the year 325 AD. In the year 325, something happened. Our texts were edited, and we lost tremendous amounts of information. The Emperor Constantine, in the early Christian church, with the early Christian Bible, had to make decisions. What information do we include? What information do we exclude? And what we know now is that at least 45 books were either completely taken away or tremendously edited into what we call today our Western biblical tradition. And when those edits were made, we lost the information that tells us everything is connected. We lost the information that tells us the language that speaks to this field. We know the information was lost because we are now recovering the information in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Nag Hammadi Library, in the Coptic texts. This is how we know this information was lost.
When we find writings belonging to Jesus that are not recorded in our primary sources, but are consistent with the ones that are, we are inclined to believe that they do indeed come from him. However, when the sayings seem to be a bit inconsistent with other teachings, we are told they have been edited out due to validity, rather than the fact that they are the sacred truth intended to be passed into the hands of all people, but that have only been reserved for a few. Any spotlight on the belief that each person is filled with the same higher power as Jesus, rather than it being an outside force to be feared, would have changed everything we know about life and our entire history. Because we are each different does not make
Power on. Bluetooth pairing.
separate. We are all a part of the same.
Bluetooth connected.
Simply taking different forms. Here are some of the sayings of Jesus from the Gospel according to Thomas, and their possible interpretations. Verse number 3. If those who lead you say to you, "See, the kingdom is in the sky," then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, "It is in the sea," then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. This teaching refers to the consequences of believing that power is outside of the individual. If you believe that this ruling power belongs to someone or something else, then that thing will hold dominion over your life. However, when the realization is made of who we each truly are, the one consciousness that moves through everything, and that all power comes from within, we can live in an ascended and rich way. The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. You literally manifest your outside circumstances from within. If you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. The belief that outside events and people have control over a person's life keeps them from living the richness that is rightfully theirs. They manifest as they believe. Verse 27. If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the Father's domain. If we do not turn away from the things that disturb us and believe in the power within to change all things, we will continue to experience that reality in our lives. Verse 50. If they say to you, "Where did you come from?" say to them, "We came from the light," the place where the light came into being on its own accord, and established itself and became manifest through their image. If they say to you, "Is it you?" say, "We are its children. We are the elect of the living Father." If they ask you, "What is the sign of your Father in you?" say to them, "It is movement and repose." The word light is used to portray the origin of humans. The light is the consciousness of each person, manifested as a physical being. It is the all in all that exists as each individual. Consciousness lives through us as activity and awareness. Verse 77. Jesus said, "It is I who am the light which is above them all. It is I who am the all. From me did the all come forth, and unto me did the all extend. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. This explains that the one consciousness lives within everything. What lives in him also lives within all other things. Verse 113. His disciples said to him, "When will the kingdom come?" Jesus said, "It will not come by waiting for it. It will not be a matter of saying, 'Here it is,' or 'There it is.' Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. We have always had the power within ourselves, but we have lost sight of it. It's something to experience. This consciousness is already a part of all things, including each person."
To unleash the force of divine nature in our lives, first, we have to understand how it works. And science tells us how it works. Secondly, we must seek the language that divine nature recognizes. Science cannot tell us that. That comes from our past, from our culture, from our history, from those who have learned and used this language for thousands of years. So this is what we're doing right now. We're learning what did Jesus and what did the great masters say about this language. Because it's the same, whether you're talking Buddhist or Hindu, or Christian, pre-Christian tradition, they're all telling us that there is a field of energy. We have the language to use that field. This is an actual page out of Thomas. So we know that this ancient gospel actually existed. You can see some of the letters. These are Greek letters. You can actually read some of, if you Greek, you can see some of the Greek letters. In the Gospel of Thomas, two very important, written right around 300 years after the time of Jesus. In the Gospel, okay, so here's what we're doing. Been to monasteries in Tibet, and they're telling us we must filling the prayer. 1, 2, if prayer had been answered. Okay, and now we're in an Egyptian monastery with our tradition where they were in, and we're going to look at the instructions that tell us how to do that. Okay, if we do that? Is that good? Okay. Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, this is verse 106. Translated from the Nag Hammadi Library. And if you do not have a copy, it's in our books, and you can go to any library and pick this up. Verse 106. Look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says, "When you make the two, thought and emotion, one." So the Gospel of Thomas is talking about thought and emotion. It's saying when you make your thought and your emotion one, look at what happens. You will say to the mountain, "Mountain, move away," and the mountain will move away. It's saying that when you can marry your thought and your emotion into one single potent force, that is when you have the power to speak to the world. Secondly, when you make the two one, what are they talking about? What are the two? Let's go back to our image. The two, thought and emotion. When the two become one in our hearts,
water, plus and minus.
we create the feelings in our bodies. When thought and emotion become one, and you'll see how to do that in just a minute. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas, another verse. Now this is verse 48. It says almost the same thing. This was so important that it was recorded at least 3 different times in the same Gospel. Look at what this says. If the two make peace with each other in this one house. When Jesus is talking about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about?
Body.
Precisely, you. You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace with each other in this house, if thought and emotion become one, if they make peace with each other in this house, look what happens. They will say to the mountain, "Move away," and it will move away. He's telling us again, in a completely different verse, how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion. But they still haven't told us how. How do you do this? That's the next piece. In the early Christian Bible, Your Bible today, there is a passage. How many have heard, ask and ye shall receive? Have you heard that before? Ask and ye shall receive. Have you heard that? I know people that ask and ask and ask and nothing happens. Because the asking is not done with the voice. The asking is not done, please, please, bring this to my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must speak to the field, to the divine matrix, in the language that the field recognizes. In a language that's meaningful. The field doesn't recognize our voice, it recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart, we have a feeling, creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the field recognizes. So,
fuck you, ads. Fuck you. Oh, the girl's pretty hot, but still. I'm married.
So you create the feeling in your heart as if your prayer is already answered. That creates the electrical and the magnetic waves that bring that answer to you. In the Bible that you have today, the King James Version, John 16:23-24, what you have is the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version looks like this. This is the edited version. Whatsoever ye ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Okay? Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. Okay, this is the edited version. This is so amazing to me because they took out the two sentences that tell us how to ask. In the 4th century, when the edits happened, they took those two sentences out. Would you like to see those two original sentences? Okay, we'll go back into the original Aramaic and we'll look at a new translation. This is the original Aramaic. It begins, it looks very similar. So this is the retranslated version with the missing pieces. All things that you ask straightly, directly from inside my name, you will be given. It says, so far you've not done this, because if we ask with our voice, we have not done this. Now here's the piece that was edited. Here is what was lost. Look at these two very powerful sentences. Ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full. Look at what it's saying. It's not saying to speak a word. It's saying to be surrounded, to feel as if. If you are surrounded, you are feeling as if your answer has already happened. Be enveloped. If you want the perfect relationship in your life, if you want the healing in the body of your loved ones, feel the feeling of what it is like as if that has already happened. Be enveloped by what you desire, because that is when your thought and your emotion become one. You think the thought of the healing in your loved ones, and you feel the love of that thought. They become one, and that is the language that this field recognizes. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? You're going to see an example of this, another example here in just a moment. Ask without hidden motive. What does that mean? Hidden motive. Ask without judgment. This is precisely what the Buddhists are telling us. Ask without the judgment of the right or the wrong or the good or the bad. Ask without the ego. Ask from the heart. Is this meaningful to you? Is this helpful at all? Let me give you an example then. Because to be, if it says be surrounded, that means to feel as if. To feel as if. Now, if that sounds too religious, because it's from the Bible, we spoke this morning about Neville, the philosopher Neville, early in the 20th century. His book, The Power of Awareness. Look at what he says. It's the same thing. Neville says, you must make your future dream a present fact now by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled to come from the place that it's already happened. Now, this is what those practitioners did with that cancerous tumor. I want to just elaborate on this a little bit. When those practitioners healed the woman with her tumor this morning, they did not judge the cancer as wrong or bad or right or good. There was no judgment. They accept that tumor as a possibility, one of many possibilities, because in the quantum world, all things are possible. So they didn't say, bad cancer, you must go away. Or we're going to operate on you, or we're going to use radiation on you. They didn't do that. They accepted the cancer as it was without judgment. And they said, now we're going to choose a new reality by assuming the feeling as if the woman is already healed. So what they did was they felt the feeling as if the woman was fully healed, fully enabled, fully capacitated, already happened. And the chant that they were using, wasa, wasa, loosely translates into the words, already done. Already done. And then when they got excited, they said, mate, means now, not a year from now, not a month from now, not 5 minutes from now, in the quantum world, now. And her body responded. It must. Physical reality must respond to the language that it understands. So in the Buddhist traditions, they are telling us the quality of the feeling. And in the Judeo-Christian traditions, they are giving us the instructions to be surrounded, to be enveloped, how to create that feeling. And when you put those all together, it's something that happens in our hearts, not in our minds. Feeling as if the prayer is already answered with no judgment and no ego, and feeling from the result. Feeling from the result as if it's already happened. Are there any martial artists here in the room? Karate experts? I studied martial arts when I was in my 20s and 30s, a little bit in my 40s and 50s. Have you seen martial artists when they demonstrate their focus by breaking a concrete block? Have you seen that? You've all seen that before, right? Okay, here's the secret. Here is the secret to breaking that block. When the martial artist is focused on that block, the very last thing that they are thinking is about their hand hitting the block.
I'm a tired daddy.
Because if they think about that, they know it will hurt.
I am a tired daddy today.
So they focus on what happens after their hand has passed through the block, as if it has already happened. They focus on a place below the block and feel the feeling as if their hand is already in that place. That is a metaphor. That is an equivalent for what we're doing with the power of emotion. Feeling as if the experience has already happened.
The Gospel of Thomas represents our connection to consciousness and all that is. It is the knowledge that liberates man. If a person does not experience this higher consciousness, they believe themselves to be separate, alone, and simply a victim of circumstance. To break free from any manifested reality that does not serve what a person desires, the false image of the self must be replaced with the true knowledge of who and what we each are, and the power that we each possess.
Teachings of Jesus. Jesus spoke in parable. The hidden teachings of Jesus. The reason Jesus spoke in parables is because he knew that if he spoke plainly about his teachings, that the powers that control the world would never allow his teachings to be disseminated. And so he created Trojan horses full of truth. And the powers that be embraced Jesus' teachings, not understanding that the meaning behind these parables would expose their lies and distortions. This video will open up these Trojan horses and let the truth expose those that have hijacked and contorted Jesus' real teachings. After watching this video, as Jesus himself said, John 8:32, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." The world you live in is not real. You think that you were born into this world, but it is the exact opposite. The world is born in you. Every time you place your consciousness through the mind and the five senses, you create this world. There is a parallel world that coincides with this world that you can also experience instead of this one. After opening up a few energy centers in your body, you can experience this world whenever you want. Jesus called this world the kingdom of heaven. Jesus taught what would today be called Kundalini Yoga. Yoga is a science. It is not a religion. A religion is when you have faith or belief in another person's experience of the divine. Yoga is a systematic and scientific method of experiencing the divine. Jesus was not a Jew, nor did he preach a religion. He was a yogi. The people of his day called him rabbi because he taught about the divine, and conceptually where they were coming from, only rabbis did. Jesus was killed because he upset the power structure of his day, saying that the traditional practice of worship was not an effective way to experience the divine. Jesus preached yoga, a methodical way to experience the divine. The body your consciousness is placed in comes with a mind, and the mind acts as a bottleneck in the ability of the consciousness to utilize the brain. The mind actually prevents you from fully accessing your capabilities. As long as you use the mind to perceive the world, you do not have the capability or the capacity to understand who and what you are or what you are capable of. You were born to sin. This is what Jesus said. And this is no fault of your own because your consciousness was placed in a malfunctioning body. The world you perceive with your five senses and mind doesn't even exist. It is a creation of the mind. Sinning is believing that you are the body and the worldly desires it creates has something to offer you. Your consciousness has only received information from the mind and the five senses your entire life, so you erroneously believe this is what you are. But if you were the mind, you could tell it to stop thinking and it would. When you go to a movie theater, you know that what you are seeing is not real, yet you still go through a roller coaster of emotions as your endocrine system pumps out various hormones depending on what you see, and it is all fantasy. When the movie is over, you walk outside into the real world, and again you go through a roller coaster of emotions as your endocrine system pumps out more hormones depending on what your mind thinks and perceives from the real world. What is the difference? And you go through. When the movie is over, you walk outside into the real world, and again you go through a roller coaster of emotions as your endocrine system pumps out more hormones depending on what your mind thinks and perceives from the real world. What is the difference? In the first example, the world you are experiencing is light being shown through still frame pictures flashing by. In the second example, the world you are experiencing doesn't even exist until you create it by placing the light of your consciousness through the filter of your mind and five senses. Your thoughts from the mind are so powerful that they press upon the unmanifested and create the world you are experiencing. When your consciousness transcends the mind and five senses and is shown through the Ajna chakra, or third eye, a completely different world is both created and experienced. As Jesus said in Matthew 6:22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. This is clearly telling us that we are sinning when our consciousness is placed through the filter of the mind and the five senses with two eyes instead of our Ajna chakra, or third eye, thine eye, or single. Why do religions teach us that sinning is acting on the desires of the mind? Jesus is saying that you can serve the body or you can serve the divine depending on where your consciousness is placed. When Jesus looked upon the ocean through his opened Ajna chakra, he saw vibrating energy. And since he himself was vibrating energy, he could walk upon it. When we look at the ocean, we see water, and so the physical world our thoughts create would drown us if we attempted Jesus' feet with our unopened third eye. The goal of this documentary is to help you recognize your Christ consciousness, or the second coming of Christ. Jesus is not coming back. He never left. In John 8:58, Jesus said, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. If Jesus existed before his body, how could he die with his body? Just like you, Jesus is, was, and will always be timeless consciousness. The second coming of Christ is one of the most misinterpreted aspects of the Bible. The second coming of Christ refers to you recognizing and obtaining your Christ consciousness. How do you achieve this? You follow Jesus' teachings. Jesus was a yogi. When Jesus spoke the words, Matthew 11:29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Jesus was referring to his yoga. The word yoke and yoga both mean joining. What is being joined? Your soul with your Christ consciousness, enabling you to tap into the universal consciousness. Your Anahata chakra with your Ajna chakra. Your heart with your intellect. How do you do this? You do what Jesus did. You study and practice the science of yoga. Ask a Catholic priest or a Christian minister what Jesus was doing from the ages of 13 to 30. Why is this period of time when Jesus went from an intellectually gifted young man to Jesus the Christ left out of the Bible? To a Christian, Jesus is the most important person to have ever lived, yet the majority of his life is completely left out of the Bible. How is this possible? How did Jesus become enlightened? And what exactly was Jesus doing when he was fasting out in the desert for 40 days? Jesus spent his adolescent years and young adulthood traveling through India, Nepal, and Tibet, studying, practicing, and teaching yoga. The three wise men from the East that visited him were rishis from India. There is no country called the East. Why do the Christian religions obfuscate these facts? Why don't they want you to know the true path to the divine? Jesus was given the option to disavow his teachings. In return, his life would be spared. He declined, saying, my body means nothing to me. My teachings are the sole purpose of why I am here. And yet today there are religions named after him that completely disregard his teachings. Revelation 1:12 states, and I turned to see the voice that spoke with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. And in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his countenance was as the sun, shineth in his strength. When Jesus revealed his true form to his disciple John, John saw Jesus' 7 chakras. Jesus himself said in Revelations 1:20, the 7 candlesticks which thou saw are the 7 churches. What do you do at a church? You worship. Jesus called them candlesticks. The yogis call them chakras. They are the same thing. Jesus was a Kundalini yoga master. The 7 seals, 7 lamps, 7 candlesticks, 7 stars, 7 churches in the Bible are referring to what yogis call the 7 chakras.